Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I'm your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of exciting and historic things with microphones because I get to be a ring announcer and cage announcer. And I am joined this week, as I often am, as I always am, by my two buddies, my two co-hosts, both of whom bring MMA punditry to new heights. Introducing to you first, from New York, he is Marc Priaulx. Mark, what's going on?
And what a ring announcer he is. They don't want to hear from me, Mike. They want to hear from you.
We're going in order, guys. We're going in order.
Get it over and tell the people how it went.
Okay. If he didn't do it, I was going to do this.
Introducing now, from the great state of Florida, Omar Artola. What's up, buddy?
Nope. No one wants it.
Okay.
People want to know what you did this weekend. People want to hear. They want to hear the juice. All of it. Man. Let's go.
So
tell us, Mike.
I did a very cool thing. At first, for me, I did two events in one weekend. On Friday, I was in New York for an amazing Warriors Cup Muay Thai event. And then I flew to Milwaukee on Saturday and did APFC Milwaukee Fight Night 2, Anthony Pettis' newish MMA promotion. And I got to introduce a lesser-known MMA fighter out of Endicott, New York, named John Jones. He did not fight on the card. He was like the honorary guest. And I got to introduce him, and he came into the cage. He took the microphone from me. I gave him a thumbs up in his face like a dweeb. I'm so mad at myself. So wait. I knew I was going to come in
and fucking Mentos commercial in there.
Oh my God, dude. The fucking whitest thing I've ever done.
Yeah, I'm baffled that you didn't have a pre-plan of you're going to hand him the mic with your left and shake his hand with your right or something like that.
You're stealing my thunder. I was going to say, that is exactly my plan. I'm like, okay. Because, here are all my cards right here from the event. Here are all my cards. So I always print off cards, but I always print off a few that are just completely blank on this side so I can write anything I want to if I need to. So I wrote my intro of him on one of my blanks. And I always hold my card in my left hand, and I always hold my mic in my right hand. But I'm like, I got to give him a fist bump or a dap or a handshake or something. So I was like, what I'm going to do is when I'm finally bellowing his name, I'm just going to flick the card onto the ground. And then when I'm done, I'm just going to quickly put the mic in my left hand. So just like a diploma, I'm just going to hand him the mic with the left, but offer my right hand for a handshake. But let me tell you, man, when you're screaming John Bones Jones and the crowd's going crazy, and then this giant 6'5" man, it just comes up to you and reaches his hand out, you just give him the mic. And so I hand him the mic. Hand him the microphone with my right hand, and then my right hand is coming away and just forms the thumbs up. And that's the photo. The photo is of me being like, so bad. But anyway, it was very cool. It was the best.
How big is he in person? Especially now that he's a heavyweight.
Dude, I'm 6'1", and he is a giant. I cannot imagine anybody fighting him. Anybody, even heavyweights. Although I will say this.
Especially with the hat he had on. He looked even bigger.
Yeah, man. I also, at the event, I also got to meet and shake hands with Ben Rothwell. And he is the biggest human being I've ever met.
Oh, that's right. I did see he was
Ben
there.
Rothwell is a mountain. And I shook his hand. My hand disappeared in his hand.
Yeah, dude. So right now, just for context, Ben Rothwell, because he's fighting now at BKFC, the limit for BKFC is not 265 for heavyweights. It's 285 or something.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
No.
He's
I found this out actually because of an interview that he did with Ariel about BKFC. Because in my head at this point, 265 is just heavyweight. That's just what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But the dude apparently walks around now normally at 300 pounds.
Of course he does.
Just
chill.
Of
course he does.
and then he cuts weight to like 285 or some shit.
Bro,
he's such a thick man.
The thought crossed my mind.
His hand is massive.
When I stood next to Ben Rothwell and shook his hand, the thought crossed my head: how has he ever lost a fight? Like, what human being can beat this man in a fight? But anyway,
I totally get it.
So that was my weekend, man. Let me just say, your boy's getting
fucking amazing.
We're getting better. I mean, I thought I've always been confident in my skills, but I think there's been a little bit of an increase in reps for me, and we're getting better and better. It's really fun. It's really good. I'm really lucky, man.
Shout out to Nico Price too, man. I see Nico Price at that event as well, because Nico Price apparently goes where his team goes. I don't think it really matters how big he is in the UFC or how many people know him. Like, that dude seems to travel with his team, so good on him, man. Because he does a lot of support. It looks like for his
tons
for
of
the smaller guys.
I mean, dude, Ben Rothwell was not there as a guest like John Jones. Ben Rothwell was a coach. He was there with his camp, Rothwell's MMA, and he's a Milwaukee guy. He's a Wisconsin guy. So Rothwell's is based in. I'm pretty sure it's based in Wisconsin. It might be Illinois. I'm pretty sure it's because when he started. Rothwell started at Rufus Sport.
Isn't he Kenosha? He always fucking reps Kenosha.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he's in Wisconsin. Dude, lots of guys are coming out.
Showing Sergio Pettis as well.
No, last minute they told me that he had to leave. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Amanda the Lioness Nunes, who this past weekend at the Rogers Arena in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, at UFC 289, defeated Irene Aldana by unanimous decision, defending once again her women's bantamweight title one last time, gentlemen, because right after this win, Amanda, she did the damn thing. She gets her gloves cut off. She takes her two belts, her bantamweight and featherweight belt. She lays them all down on the octagon mat. She kneels down. She makes out with all of them. She gets emotional. I got emotional. I'm sure you guys got emotional. But before we talk about her retirement, let's first talk about this fantastic performance. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. Give me your take and your reaction to yet another title win for Amanda Nunes.
I mean, talk about going out on top. You can't be much more dominant than she was in that fight. But really, there's not so much to say about that fight because only one girl showed up to have it. I mean, that was the worst Irene Aldana we've ever seen, and it's not even close. I don't know if she just froze or if her game plan backfired early and she just couldn't figure out how she wanted to adjust or the stage was too big or what. But I mean, she didn't even fight. She landed one nice shot in round one, and that was pretty much it. That was like the only check she could mark for herself. She had one nice punch in round one. Other than that, she was just kind of there. Like, she wasn't throwing. She was backing up. She was letting Amanda do whatever she wanted. I mean, and Amanda looked fantastic. She really did. She looked great in every single aspect of that fight. She was winning on the feet. Takedown was always there. If she wanted it early, she didn't even want it. Then she decided to go for it. She was dominant in the wrestling. I mean, again, she did whatever she wanted. There was not a lot of resistance coming back from the Irene Aldana side in that fight, unfortunately. So it wasn't terribly memorable for her last fight for Amanda. She kind of just put a beating on her, laid the belts down, put the gloves down, drank some beer, thanked her people, and went out on top. And I'm always happy to see fighters go out on top. You know, too many, as we know, are not capable of walking away when they're still winning. And yes, Amanda could still be champ for a couple more years, maybe even longer than that. Of course she could. She's still the class of 135 and very certainly the class of 145. Yeah. But she's done basically all there is to do. And if she is content with what she's accomplished and wants to go ahead and be a mom and enjoy her life and not have to diet and not have to train and all that, I mean, I'm sure she'll still train, but you know what I mean, then good for her. And I'm happy to see her move on to the next stage of her life.
Omar, the scores read 50-44, 50-44, and 50-43. So two of the judges had one of the rounds as a 10-8, and one judge, I believe, had 2 rounds as 10-8s. A reflection of the dominance of Amanda Nunes, but also a reflection of, as Mark was alluding to, how Irene Aldana came with a strange game plan. What did you make of Irene Aldana's game plan and the fight, how it played out?
That wasn't a game plan. Whatever the game plan was, that's not a game plan. She didn't do anything. She stood there with her hands up, had a little bit of movement every now and again, threw a couple pot shots every now and again. Every time she threw one, Amanda made her eat shit. And that was pretty much the story for the entire fight. And I think the worst part about it was Amanda Nunes was able to make that experience exponentially worse with each round. So the first round was a nice little back and forth, right? Trying to get a little feeling out process. And Irene kind of, has a moment there. So we're like, okay, just a little on the slow side here. Maybe Irene just kind of needs a minute to warm up, get her groove, get her timing or whatever. Second round, that doesn't happen. Takedowns start getting involved, right? We start worrying about the ground game, and Irene gets dropped to the ground. She gets right back up, and again, some more questions about how she was going to deal with the takedown stuff are not necessarily answered, but we start getting glimpses of it, and so it's like, okay, she still doesn't seem comfortable in there, but maybe she'll start going there. And then she didn't, and she just didn't. She at no point looked like she knew what she was doing in that fight, specifically in that fight. She had no answer. She was getting worked. Every time she tried to go for something, Amanda had a lot more activity and a lot more answers. Leg kicks were being thrown while Irene was trying to go for the head. While Irene thought that they were going to be low kicks, she was getting cracked in the face. It was not a great night for Irene. I don't subscribe to the 50-43 personally. I don't think that 4th round was a 10-8 round. The 5th round, I will concede. I can see definitely 10-8 round. I had it as a 10-8 round myself. So 50-44, I thought was the proper decision. Either way, I mean, we're splitting hairs at this point, so it really doesn't fucking matter. But it was a beyond dominant performance from Amanda Nunes. But at the same time, it sucks to watch those performances because it's really. As somebody who might have been a super big Amanda Nunes fan and a super big stan, that must have been a great performance to watch from beginning to end. But as somebody who's, just in this specific case, I don't really have a lot of the kind of fandom as I would for some of the other people in the sport. And so at the end of the day, I just really love watching fighting, and I love watching competitiveness, and I love watching the to see these fighters kind of give it their all. And I don't think we got that from Irene Aldana. So it was hard for me to fully enjoy this fight as much as I thought I was going to, at least from a competitive perspective. Hopefully she learns from this. Hopefully that never happens again in her career. But like Mark said, something must have happened to her at this point. Something that we, don't know about. We definitely don't know about it, but something either that happened in the moment, something that was already leading up to that moment. Who knows? But it was sad. It was sad to watch Irene let a moment like that just slip away. But it was great for Amanda to see her kind of go out on top.
I really think she did freeze. Like, if you make me guess, I really think it was just didn't show up.
Yeah.
I feel
you
like
could see the end of the fight. At the very end of the fight, when she goes, when the bell rings, Amanda gets off of her, you could see it. You could see it in her face, the I fucked up face. Like, I can't believe that just happened.
Yeah.
And so, it sucks.
I feel like her game plan was to be patient overall, and then it just kind of got away from her. And then there seemed to be a little bit of deer in the headlights kind of thing. I mean, in between rounds, her corner was kind of imploring her, like, you got to engage more. We need more volume. We need more action.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But look, when you're standing across from Amanda Nunes, it's like, it makes me think of that Mike Perry interview where he's like complaining about when his corner is like, go, Mike, go, go. And he's like, you go.
You gotta go, Mike. You gotta go.
I'm not trying to get hit. Yeah.
Screw you. You go. I'm not trying to get hit right now.
Exactly.
I love that interview.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, that's what can happen. It's hard to intentionally come with a patient game plan against fighters on the elite level, because you run the risk of, you're like, I'm going to be patient here and not really push much. And then you're like, holy fuck, they're so good. And it's already been however many minutes. And you're like, how do I change this fight now instead of coming out of the gate differently? Like it's a tough.
There's also certain fighters where I feel like you could play that little bit of a game plan, right? Where you can be a little bit more patient than others. But when Amanda Nunes is literally pushing forward for the entire fight and is landing shit on you for the entire fight, at what round are you like, damn, this isn't working. Maybe I should try something else. Or especially by that 5th round, like there's hematomas all over the place. Aldana was completely messed up by the time that 5th round came. But when do you go for broke? And now granted, Amanda Nunes ended up taking her down to the 5th round and completely killing her for the rest of that round and not even giving Aldana a chance at that point to do anything, which to her credit was probably the right way to go because that was Aldana needed a finish, obviously, by that 5th round. That was doing something stupid was the only way that Aldana was going to win in that fight at that point. So, credit to Amanda for recognizing that, taking advantage of it, especially if Aldana can't do anything to get off the ground. So it was just frustrating all the way around. It really was. I thought it would be way more competitive than that.
Before we shift gears and talk about Amanda Nunes' retirement, is there anything that we want to say about what could be next for Irene Aldana in terms of her next opponent at 135 pounds? Because we have plenty of show to get through.
It's pretty hard to match her up because she has actually fought like nearly every single girl around her in these rankings. So I kind of settled on her fighting Mayra Bueno Silva, who is matched up with Holly Holm, regardless of what happens in that fight. Like if Holm turns her back, I feel like you can be like, all right, they both lost, match them up. If she gets past Holm, I feel like you can still be like, well, Aldana just fought for the title, match him up. Like, I don't know who else you'd go to. She's fought all these other girls.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it was for me just to give it a little bit of, I guess, different shade to it, I would even think a Miesha Tate fight would be interesting as well. Miesha Tate hasn't necessarily been doing fantastic. I don't necessarily want to give another wrestler to Aldana, but at the same time, just based off of recent performances, I think Miesha Tate probably brings a level of wrestling that she could deal with. So I think it'd be interesting.
That is fair. I kind of forgot Miesha Tate existed, to be honest. Is Miesha Tate not booked? I feel like she hasn't fought in ages. Yeah, she's not booked. Wow. It's been a long time. Oh,
I think she's going back up.
Hurt. Because she was supposed to fight Mayra Bueno Silva, now that I think about it, and Holly stepped in for her. So she must be hurt.
You're right.
Yeah.
But she did go back up to 135, so that 125 experiment, I think, is over.
Yes. And then as for the belt, you got to think we're going to see Raquel and Juliana Pena.
Yeah.
I don't know where else you go. It feels like it has to be those two.
No, you go nowhere else. That's where you go. That's 100% where you go.
Yeah, I agree. And they haven't fought.
Right. And it's a great fight, if we're being completely honest. I think it's a fantastic fight.
For sure. And they both deserve it. You really, I mean, we're saying the same thing over and over, but
yes,
you can't push anyone else. It's got to be them.
Also, RIP to the featherweight division. Norma Dumont, you're always going to be my champ.
Told you. The walking papers are coming any minute.
That's that. Norma Dumont's like, fuck, do I got to cut to 135 again now? Is that what the hell's going to have to happen? Maybe she goes to PFL.
Before you know it.
Maybe she goes to PFL. If they cut her from 145, go to PFL and look, if Kayla misses out on a another season here, Norma Dumont might just punch her ticket to $1 million. You never know.
She ain't being Pacheco.
Yeah, right. I listen. We can dream. We can dream.
Okay, let's talk about. I mean, dude, we could have a whole show about Amanda Nunes' career, but we have quite a bit of show to still get through. So we have to say something. What do you guys want to say about the legacy of Amanda Nunes?
Yeah, I won't say much. We did. If you want to hear more in depth, our thoughts on Amanda Nunes. I don't know why my mind wants to say Nunes, even though it's not. I don't know what's wrong with me. Nunes. We recently have been doing some all-time ranking shows on here, if you have not caught them, or segments, I should say. We did a flyweight all-time ranks, we did a bantamweight all-time ranks, and our first one that we did was a overall women's all-time ranks. So those 3 are up right now on our specials section on YouTube. But if you want to hear more on Amanda, go there, because we talked about her career in depth there. Of course, she was our number 1 all-time women's fighter for all 3 of us. But yeah, I mean, the resume speaks for itself. She has beaten everyone who is on the list of arguable greats. I know she had that loss to Pena at the end here, but she came right back and avenged that in a dominant performance. I mean, the girl is so clearly the GOAT of women's MMA that it's not really worth a conversation. But I'll stop there because, as you said, we do have a shitload to get to in this episode.
It's true.
Yeah, man. I mean, she's definitely, to me, the most accomplished women's MMA fighter at this point. Definitely the one with the best resume. The one I think who's going to go down in history as the one I think with the most, I guess, significant wins, right? Over big names, over people of value, across organizations. The win against Chris Cyborg, I think, set her way over the top. I think even more so than the Ronda Rousey one. I think we had gotten to a point with Ronda that we kind of almost expected that, but the Chris Cyborg one, we didn't really know what the hell was going to happen with that one. We just knew somebody was going to die. And the fact that she was able to wreck Cyborg the way that she was able to do it, I mean, that sent her on a different level, I think, at that point. And she was able to maintain. Some of her later performances, depending on which ones you go through, might have been, a little bit a little bit more lackluster than others. She wasn't always laying people face down, ass up on the canvas, but she was dominant, and she wasn't the type of fighter that was generally getting run over or getting abused or having really super close decisions with a lot of folks. For the most part, she was very, very dominant in her career. Like we talked about, the Juliana Pena performance wasn't great. She said there was, that was a hiccup and that wasn't normal. And the second Juliana Pena fight, she made it seem like that was indeed the case. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about that second fight. She beat the crap out of Juliana Pena in that fight. So she's had an amazing career, amazing story, amazing life. Obviously, if you follow the sport long enough and close enough, you know that her wife is another UFC fighter as well, who obviously took a little bit of time off to grow and give birth to the children's. I believe they are pregnant again with their second one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, correct.
So, it's a beautiful story for sure. I think she will definitely be missed. But I think with her exit, it makes the bantamweight division very, very, very interesting and really up for grabs at this point. So I'm excited to see what happens going forward, and I'm happy that Nunes had the career that she did.
And what a career was that? Yeah, she's the GOAT, at least for now. Until Norma Dumont catches up to her.
Hey, let's go, baby.
Let us move on. Congrats to Amanda Nunes. What a career. In the co-main event, UFC 289, in the in the lightweight division, this almost felt like it could have been on the marquee of its own. Because
it's on my fucking marquee.
Because the king is back, ladies and gentlemen. Charles do Bronx Oliveira TKOs Beneil Dariush in the very first round. Omar, start us off with this one. Give us your take of the performance, this masterful performance of Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Why is that rude?
Well, because that's his boy.
But I'll at the fucking bit over here.
I'll get my thing out real quick, and then
go ahead, dude. Take your time.
We'll let Mark go. I was a little. It was an interesting little experience for me because the first part of that fight, I was like, okay, this is kind of what I expected here. Beneil's not afraid to go down to the ground with Charles. Yeah. He's doing well on the ground with Charles, landing some shots on the ground, not really getting abused on the ground like I feel like a lot of people in that situation would, not shying away from the ground like a lot of high-level guys have shied away from the ground with Charles. And I thought that would be one of the bigger differentials in that fight because generally guys that aren't afraid to go to the ground with Charles are usually the guys that do a lot better in fights with him than others. So I thought that would make a difference in the beginning of that first round. I thought it was. And then it occurred to me that Beneil Dariush had zero sense of the range in that fight on the feet and paid with his whole soul. And once the striking got into play towards the latter half of that round, he ate big shit, ended up on the ground. And the one thing you got to give him credit for was that rear naked choke that Charles tried to put on him. Like 99% of the time, that probably would have sunk right in with almost anybody else. But even dazed and confused, Dariush was still on top of it and would not get submitted, but he did get TKO'd. So he was correct that he might have actually won in a grappling match against Oliveira. MMA, not so much.
Okay, Mark, let us have it.
Let's go. I told you. I tried to tell everybody. Charles made me a fuck ton of money on Saturday night. That was awesome. The whole world was on Beneil Dariush. Vegas disrespecting my boy Charles and making him the dog. And the man comes through. He's a fucking animal. He showed it yet again on Saturday night. It's an argument as to whether he is the best lightweight ever, but he is certainly the most dangerous lightweight we've ever seen. He can finish you so suddenly and in so many different ways that you are never not in danger when you're in a cage with Charles Oliveira. Like, in any position, the fight could be over in the next 5 seconds, and that's what makes him so great. And that's why people love this guy. I mean, and the fucking Canadian crowd love this guy. My God. I thought they were in Brazil, it sounded like. But, yeah, man, I said it last week. I thought Charles would be able to march Beneil down and drop him in a blitz. That was the word I was using as my buzzword last week, and it's exactly what he did. And he tried to march him down early, too, and he had been saying this, that he didn't feel like he came forward enough against Islam. He kind of had abandoned what he was doing in the Poirier fights and Gaethje fights, and et cetera, and that he would do it from the opening bell in this fight. And you could tell he tried to, but they got locked up in that clinch right away. Charles tried to lift Beneil. Didn't work. They kind of lost their balance. Beneil landed on top of him. So we did get to see some grappling, which was nice. It was mostly just like Beneil swinging and missing and punching holes in the mat, to be honest. But
he landed on Charles. It wasn't consistent, but he landed on that boy.
I think he might land about one punch. I didn't see shit. All the announcers were talking about was how many holes he was punching in the mat. But yeah, and then the second Charles was able to get back to his feet, he was immediately right back on the attack, walking Beneil down. The head kick is landed partially, and that's kind of what started it off. And then he just blitzed him like I thought he could. Beneil is susceptible to that, and he dropped him with a big right. As Omar said, he thought about taking the neck, and then he just saw that the hammer fists were the way, and he put Beneil out. You cannot make a bigger statement than he made in that spot while you have this Poirier-Gaethje fight kind of hanging over you that could also produce a number one contender. For him to go out and do that in a fight that so many people thought he would lose, and then to have the crowd treating him like he was friggin' George St. Pierre. I mean, it was crazy. And then he gets on the mic, and he busts out some English with zero warning and catches all of us off guard. He's got the crowd eating out of the palm of his hand. He throws down the challenge to fight Islam again. You can't script it better for it to go in a way where it's like everyone's saying, maybe Poirier-Gaethje doesn't matter right now. Maybe we just have to do Islam Charles again. I mean, I don't know if that's definitely what we're getting, but he did everything he could to push it in that direction.
Well, to be fair, Dana White did say that the next fight looks like it's going to be Charles and Islam and that he's excited to make that rematch. So that's positive.
Right. Yeah. But then someone asked about Poirier-Gaethje, and he said, well, we'll have to see. So that's why I'm saying, who knows?
Yeah. Honestly, out of all three of those, I'd rather see the Charles fight anyway.
See, it's just tough because he's the only one that's fought Islam. So I don't know if they're going to be like, and you would think Poirier-Gaethje is going to be amazing, and maybe one of them knocks out the other, and that whoever that is has a ton of buzz, and then whoever that is gets to say, Islam hasn't fought me yet. So there'll be an argument for sure.
What do you think about there being some sort of interim title in place
Dude.
And then Islam goes and fights at fucking 170 or something.
No. Oliveira already beat fucking Poirier and Gaethje. I don't need to see that again. And they were recent. Islam needs to defend his fucking belt.
It's true. It's true.
UFC's doing some weird shit nowadays.
Yeah. I mean, dude, given
All
how
these guys
this...
waited while he fought Volk. They can't wait again.
Yeah.
But
Another
given
man that called the Charles win, one of the few, is Mike. So give Mike his credit as well.
Thank you.
What'd you think?
I felt like when they were on the ground, I felt like, yes, I was impressed that Beneil was unafraid to go to the ground with Charles, but I also felt like Charles wanted to be there on his back, almost to like, I don't know. I felt like Charles was also, they were both fighting for control. And that's what I love about high-level jiu-jitsu is that you can be in complete control even when you're the one on your back. And what I thought was telling was that when Charles wanted to get up, he just got up. He was like, all right, get the fuck off me. We're getting back on the feet. And he just shoved Beneil off of him and got right back up. And yeah, man, Charles is Muay Thai. It has come quite a ways over the years, and he is very dangerous. Everybody thinks about the Poiriers and the Gaethjes in terms of the heavy hitters at 155, but do not sleep on Charles Oliveira anymore. The man has filled out his frame. He's grown into his body, and he has great size for 155 in and of himself. This is a guy who fought at featherweight.
Sure.
And
Which is mind-blowing.
Tremendous win. And the way that he won that fight over a fighter at the caliber of a Beneil Dariush, let's run it back for the belt right now. I'm ready for it. We're ready for it. America is ready for it.
I mean, so what is it now at this point? Because I think they've got Islam lined up for this fight in October for Abu Dhabi. I don't even think they have an opponent for him, but I think they just know that they want to put him in that card. So I guess throw Charles in with that.
Which sucks because
what, 4 or 5 months away?
Wasn't the last fight in Abu Dhabi too? When Charles fought him? Yeah, it was. So. I just looked it up. Yeah. That sucks for Charles. Like, fucking let him fight in America at least. Doesn't have to be Brazil. But 2 Abu Dhabis, not fair.
And you know what's really weird too is when Nunes pointed out that as she was retiring, she's like, right now I'm the only Brazilian champ in the UFC, and now there will be none for this moment in time. That's so weird that there are no. I don't. How many other, like a dozen belts?
Yeah. What a time in MMA for there not to be any Brazilian champs. Not one.
Not one in the UFC.
And not only for there not to be any Brazilian champs, but for there to be 3 Mexican champs.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, with the interim, right? Yeah.
It's a wild time.
It sure is, man. Yeah. But yeah, heavyweight Jones, light heavyweight Jamal Hill, middleweight Izzy, welterweight Leon, lightweight Islam, featherweight Volk, bantamweight Aljo, flyweight Moreno, women's featherweight and bantamweight were both Nunes. Now they're both vacant. Women's flyweight Grasso, and women's strawweight Weili. No brasileiros.
Yeah, and it seems like the biggest hope for Brazil really at this point is Pantoja and Oliveira.
Yeah,
and Norman Dumont.
We are single-handedly making Norman Dumont into a meme on this show. Why?
As long as she knows it's an appreciation. We bring her up as an appreciation for the fact that she is the sole proprietor of 145 at this point.
Yeah, we're not knocking her in any way. It's
just
that she
wins.
Only fighter in an entire division.
What's there to knock? The girl wins.
She's the only fighter. And they won't give her the belt. She's just in the division. It's like she's standing in a room by herself. Okay, let's move on. You guys ready?
Like legit, she's probably fought. She's fought
So
more
many.
fights at 145 than Amanda Nunes has. I
Probably,
think.
yeah.
Probably. Could be,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we can move on. I'll just say that for Beneil, I would like to see him get another high-profile shot. Like, I know this didn't go his way, but he was supposed to fight Islam. It got taken away from him. Yes, he got a big chance here. It didn't go his way, but I feel like he's earned it, that I'd like to see him get one more big name. So I would like to see the loser of Poirier and Gaethje get matched with Dariush.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I'm at, too, with it, to be honest.
And part of me is afraid they're going to be like, all right, Beneil, like, you're fighting fucking Jalen Turner. Like,
I was going to say Matt Frivola, but yes, we're on the same page with that.
Yeah,
too.
right.
yeah, I hope not.
Okay, here we go. Excuse me. In the welterweight division, Mike Malott notches another victory, another finishing by submission. Adam Fugitt in round number 2 of their welterweight clash. Mark, start us off this time. Give us a reaction of Mike Malott getting it done once again with a finish.
Huge night for Mike Malott. I know that Adam Fugitt is not any kind of big name opponent, so we got to be fair about that. But Mike Malott knocked it out of the park as much as he could with what was put in front of him on this card. Between the performance, the interview after, the crowd reaction, everything. I mean, he became I'm sure a lot more of a household name in Canada, this week than he was last week, based on what he did on Saturday night. And he fought great. He set the tone immediately with a big body kick that hurt Fugitt. He maintained range really well as the fight developed. As soon as they clinched, he had an easy takedown. Later, he catches a kick, gets another beautiful trip takedown. I mean, he had the whole fight under control for as long as it lasted. And then round 2, he lands a huge right stepping in that he set up beautifully by kind of mixing up the timing on it, and ends up jumping on a guillotine. And when a fighter from Team Alpha Male grabs a guillotine, it is usually good night. And that held true here as well. So, like I said, huge performance from Malott in Canada. Delivered on the mic as well. Perfect night for him.
Omar, what did you make of this performance from Mike Malott in his home country, Canada? You're muted, Omar.
You're muted, Omar.
Yep, figured that out. I thought it was great. The ending sequence that Mark was talking about, I thought was my favorite part, really, of the entire fight. I rewound it a bunch of different times because I really enjoyed it. And he's, it really was a setup using the teep. So that front kick he ends up throwing up, lands, and he was landing to the body kind of early and often, to be honest. And he kind of had Fugitt's hands almost planted a little bit further down on his body throughout the entire fight as a result. Yep. But that finishing sequence, he hits him with a teep right to his gut, kind of gets him triggered a little bit and gets him a little bit trained to look out for that front kick as well. And you could see that there was it's almost like a hop-in, like a step hop-in that he did, which ultimately is used in combination as a fake or a feint for a front teep. So instead of throwing the front teep, you're making a small hop to cover distance, which is something that is done commonly in striking, especially in Muay Thai at least. But that little hop-in allowed him to land that two-piece, which eventually ruined Fugitt's life. But that setup from the teep to the hop to the two-piece was something I'm going to steal immensely.
And he made it look like he was throwing the right on the hop. Yeah. And Fugitt kind of went hands up, the right didn't come, hands down, and then the right came. Like that was what I loved about it. It was like he staggered it.
Yeah, and you could see the discomfort too, right? When guys, and my thing is, defense and stuff like that, you can tell when somebody has good defense when their hands don't come out. When somebody defends a strike, any strike, with their hands extending out almost like to stop it from coming forward, right? Like if you're somehow going to stop a punch like in a fucking movie or something like that, like that's not real. That stuff doesn't really happen. And usually when that occurs from somebody, it's because of the discomfort, sort of getting caught off guard by a strike. And that's just sort of the natural reaction you have. When you train, and what you're training your body to do is to stay tight and to sort of block the punches like that and not necessarily extend out. And you could see that Fugitt was extending out because he was uncomfortable, and I don't think he really knew what was coming. He might have been blocking for something else, but like Malott had him trained in that fight. By the time that fight was over, he had him biting on everything that he was setting up, and it was a great performance from Malott.
Yeah, man. Where do we see Mike Malott going from here? Omar, do you have a name for us at 170 pounds of who could be his potential next opponent?
I mean, he's got such momentum, I think, at this point. I think the real thing for me is I'm not really sure where he was ranked or where he would be ranked now. Mark, where do you think he would be ranked at this, or where is he ranked? Just kill that one real quick.
In my rankings, he is number 52. And I can go first if you want. The reason he's number 52 is because he hasn't really fought anyone. Yes, he's 3-0.
Right.
But he's beaten Mickey Gall, who is what he is, Johan Liness, who is terribly unproven, and Adam Fugitt, who's terribly unproven. So, on that note, I think we're 3 fights in now. It's time to fight someone relevant, someone who carries some danger, who's a bit up the line. So I'm going to say I'd like to see him in there across from Warley Alves.
Nice.
Yeah. I was looking at Warley. I was also looking at Court McGee.
That's fair.
But like, I feel like if Court McGee loses this one, which I feel like he would against Mike Malott, that might be it for Court McGee. So I don't know if I wanted to do that to him, but it is a good fight. The other one I also wanted to see was potentially Brian Battle. Brian Battle's on such a nice little momentum off of that one fight. I don't know if I want to run him into Mike Malott either, but 2 fights I think are still very, very interesting and very fun.
Yeah, man. Okay, moving on to the featherweight division, and Dan Ige gets it done over Nate the Train Landwehr by unanimous decision. The scorecards are at 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28, all for 50K Ige. Mark, start us off this time. Give us your take. I think we both picked Ige. Omar, did you pick Ige or Landwehr?
I picked Ige.
Oh, we were unanimous.
Don't let him lie to you. No, he picked Landwehr.
Did I really?
Yes.
Did I really?
You're making me doubt myself now, but I'm opening it up because I'm 99% sure you picked Landwehr.
This is bullshit. I thought
Fuck,
I picked Ige.
I'm an idiot. I apologize. You didn't.
Oh, thank you.
Why did I feel like I looked this up while I was watching the fight on Saturday.
I was like, there's no way. I got a lot of shit wrong that night, but that was like the one I got right.
Wow, I'm sorry. Oh, you picked Aldana.
Yes, that's correct.
That
one didn't work out for me, dude.
I knew you had 3 differences from me. For some reason, I guess my brain just was like, well, it couldn't have been Aldana, so I was trying to think of what the third one was.
It
My
was
bad.
Aldana.
All right. We're all on Ige.
Yeah, Ige did great, man.
Sorry, as I call Omar out now for a bad pick. Yeah, I thought that Dan Ige fought a great fight here. I was actually really impressed by him. I think that's one of the best Dan Iges that I've seen. He's not normally someone that I love. Like, I know Mike's always been very high on Ige. I'm not sure about Omar. But I'm always kind of like, I'm not really sure what to think. And I loved what I saw in this fight. He set a tone right out of the gate. He was going after Nate, which was very smart because Nate is a guy who likes to set that tone. He didn't seem concerned by Nate's power. He was landing some beautiful kind of lunging rights where he kept kind of lunging into Nate's range and then he was out. He was mixing it up to the body. And most importantly, he was doing a great job switching stances, which was really kind of throwing Nate off. Then, of course, he lands the huge left at the end of round 1 that hurt Nate. He knocks him down with another left at the end of round 2. It was just a lot of great work from Ige. And at the end of the second, it really did feel like it was a matter of time. I thought before he got Landwehr out of there, Nate was like wobbling to his corner. But to Nate's credit, Ige opened the door for him, and he did not walk through. He pushed through that whole third round, but it was Dan Ige's night, and he sent Nate Landwehr back down the line.
Sure did. Omar, what was your take?
Yeah, man. I thought this was a great performance from Dan Ige. I thought it was definitely one of his more technical performances, and I think that's one of the beauties of Dan Ige's game. When he's on, his technique, I think, really shines through, and his ability to outbox and outmove people and outstrike people, I think, really can be his bread and butter in a lot of situations. And I think the higher you go and the more you get these grindy wrestlers, I think that's really where he starts to wither. Also, guys that have a lot of big power who can kind of take his volume but return with something even more, I think is also where he has opportunities. But guys like Nate Landwehr, who are just these like tanks that just like to push forward, not a huge amount of technique behind them as far as cleanliness in the striking and things like that, right? Not a lot of, I guess you would say an intellectual approach to the fight, right? Nate Landwehr is very much a guy that comes forward, whatever happens. He adjusts tries to adjust on the fly, but is a lot of reactionary things to him. Dan Ige is very much setting things up, laying traps, moving around, cutting angles. There's a lot more of an intellectual approach there. So I wasn't necessarily surprised that this fight went the way that it did. I was surprised at how successful Ige was throughout the majority of those 3 rounds. That I thought surprised me a little bit. I thought Nate would be able to get something, a little bit more success in there just with his abilities that he has, especially being the tank that he is. But not so much, man. Dan Ige had a great performance, and it was fun to watch.
Don't sleep on Dan Ige. I feel like he's one of the more unassuming featherweights, but the man can bang. Yeah. Mark, give me the name of the 145-pound fighter that Dan Ige should be fighting next.
I'm going to say Sadiq Yusuf. Him and Ige are ranked side by side, or at least they were on Saturday. I'm not sure if it changed. But Yusuf has some nice wins over guys like Caceres and Feely, guys who are like just outside these ranks. I mean, I think Caceres is 15, so I guess technically he's in it. Yep. But I feel like Ige is the perfect test for him. I feel like Ige needs, another win over a ranked type of guy. Nate was obviously a bit of a step down. So I think that fight makes a lot of sense and propels the winner.
Omar, any other bright ideas?
I don't hate that, to be honest. The only other name I had on the tip of my tongue was Alex Caceres. I think from a stylistic standpoint, I think that'd be a really fun fight. The Sadiq Yusuf fight, I think, makes more sense in terms of Dan Ige's career. But just from a fight perspective, I think the Alex Caceres one would be fun.
Yeah, I like it too.
I'll
stick with what I said last week and say let's throw Daniel Pineda and Nate Landwehr in there and see what happens.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Keep
2
moving,
more.
Baby.
Keep moving. In the middleweight division and opening the main card of UFC 289, Marc-Andre Barriault gets it done over Eryk Anders by unanimous decision, shutting him out on the scorecards, 30-27 across the board. Omar, start us off. Give us your take of this pretty nice performance by Marc-Andre Barriault.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe I'm on the minority, but this fight was a little infuriating for me, and I think it was that way because I think just because of how sloppy the fight really was. I know it got fight of the night, and I think a lot of people enjoyed the fight a lot more than I realized that they did. But I didn't have too much fun with it. It was very sloppy. I expected a lot more from Anders, and I think that's really what had me messed up in that fight. Especially out of his last performance, I thought that he was a little bit, not only the aggression, but I thought he was just a little bit tighter than what he showed in his Marc-Andre Barriault fight. And I think Barriault reacted well to it. He was able to kind of keep the big shots off of him. He was able to drop Anders in the first round. Flash knockdown for sure. Nothing that really wobbled Anders or really messed him up, but still had his ass on the ground. But Anders was just, he's another one that, like, he doesn't think about anything that he's doing in there. He can't. The way he fights, he's on complete reaction. Like, whatever happens, and that approach is just driving me crazy. And I really didn't feel like that was still the same approach that he had in his last fight. I thought there was a little bit more purpose behind the things that he was doing, but that didn't seem to be the case. I thought that Barriault definitely put on a better performance overall, definitely a much cleaner performance. But it was a sloppy and it was a crazy fight. I guess I expected more from, at minimum, one of them. So not my favorite fight personally.
Mark?
I got a different take. I enjoyed this fight.
Yeah, I know, dude. I've been looking, and I see everybody has literally loved this fight, and I'm the only one who was sitting at the bar like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a technical masterpiece, but I kind of knew it wouldn't be going in because that is how Barriault fights look. Like, he just pushes it, and he's going to swarm you, and you're going to have to fight in that fire, and that's pretty much how his fights go. So I guess I kind of was expecting it to look that way, and I get what you mean about Anders not being a thinking man's fighter. But my main issue with Anders has always been his, I feel, unwillingness to go for it and to be in exchanges, and I saw that progression against Dawkins.
Sure.
And I feel like I still saw it here. Like, yes, he came out and he got caught immediately, but he had a rally from that, and he did. He was going for it. He was not afraid to exchange. He was trying to push the pace with Barriault, and he really matched it with him the whole fight long. And I thought he even came back and won round 2. I don't know if every judge scored it unanimous or one gave him round 2. I haven't rewatched it, but live I actually thought Anders won round 2. It was just that Barriault was a little bit better. He kept kind of being a bit ahead in the exchanges. As I said, he could go all day. He maybe had a bit more energy by the time the third rolled around. His accuracy was really on point, and yeah, he is a bit smarter in there with his shots and how he uses things. But I thought it was a close fight. I thought Anders battled with the tools that he has, and just got outpointed.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
I literally can never pick Eryk Anders again. Like, I can't.
Dude, I picked Anders going into this fight.
Yeah, I never do. I fucking went with him this time.
I
thought Anders in his
We all
previous fight, he has unlocked another level, and I thought his striking is looking good, and he has really good power for the weight class. But Marc-Andre Barriault had a knack for making it his kind of fight. So that being said, where do these two middleweights go from here? Omar, give me a name of where you think the winner, MAB, goes next at middleweight.
Yeah, why don't we call him Mab? Because we should.
Yo,
Like, why is that
Mab.
a thing?
Mab.
Who are you asking me for? Which one of these two fucking guys?
MAB,
Mark-
bro.
Mab.
Mab.
God, I can't tell you how much I hated this fight. I really wanted to love this fight way more than I do. Was Eryk Anders ranked higher than him at this point?
He definitely was ahead of that fight, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So at this point, I would imagine that we have to go kind of way up the rankings here at this point. So I know we had some names, I feel like, the other night for Edmund Shahabazian, but maybe at this point we throw a little Marc-Andre Barriault his way, and we see a little more Canadian versus USA violence.
Okay, down, Mark.
I do not hate it. I was going to go with Phil Hawes. I know Hawes has certainly reached a higher point in this division than a Barriault has. Like, obviously, he's beaten guys like an Imavov, and Barriault doesn't really have that type of win, but he's lost a couple in a row. He needs, I feel like, a little bit of a step back from fighting killers, and Barriault's looked good lately, so I feel like that's an intriguing fight.
I like it. What about the
For
losers?
Anders,
For
I'll
Anders.
say my boy, I will say Michal Olasejuk.
Ooh.
They both recently lost. I think it's a fun one. Let one of them get right.
Omar?
I will see your Oleksiejczuk. I will give you Puna Soriano. I think that would be a fun fight, and I think somebody there is bound to die. And to be honest, Soriano's got some flaws in his game too, so it gives Eryk Anders some opportunity there to win that fight.
Yeah, he doesn't look great. But yeah, I mean, that is a fun fight.
Mikhail is one of the few ones that I can say pretty well. It's Oleksiejczuk. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's what I said.
One of you said it wrong. I don't know. Okay, last one before we hop into the lightning round. The featured bout on the prelims for UFC 288 in the middleweight division as well did not end well. Nassourdine Imavov versus Chris Curtis ends in a no contest due to an accidental clash of heads, which resulted in a terrible cut on the eye of Mr. Curtis. Mark, what were your thoughts of the fight as it was playing out and of the way that it finished?
This was brutal for Nassourdine Imavov. Of course, it sucks for Chris Curtis too, but man, Nassourdine Imavov was fighting a perfect fight. He had fought that fight exactly how I thought he could, using his range beautifully, not allowing Curtis to work in that boxing range the way he wants to. He mixed in some grappling just to kind of keep Curtis off balance, and he really had Chris Curtis in a non-productive place, like whatever it was, 9 minutes into that fight. I don't know how far in we were, 8 minutes, with no signs of it changing, really. And his hands looked so much faster than Curtis's. The accuracy was on point. I mean, he was just picking him apart. And yes, of course, he did it to himself. It's, you're responsible for your own head, and he made a mistake. But it's a tough break that it couldn't have just been a reset and the fight continues. And unfortunately, I guess it messed up Curtis's eye, and you could tell Curtis didn't want it to end. He was begging with the ref to give him one more minute, but couldn't see apparently, and it ends. But it feels like one man showed he was the better man from what we did see. I'm not sure that was going to change.
Yep. Omar?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, Imavov definitely made it seem like he was going to be winning that fight, right? I mean, he definitely took the first round. I thought without question he was winning the second round up until that point anyway. And a lot of it really had to do with Curtis's inactivity. Curtis just really didn't seem to have an answer to fight Imavov, which is wild considering what we talked about last week about how he trains with a guy who literally just put the beats on Imavov. Yeah. So I'm not really sure where that disconnect came from. The range I thought was very visibly different, right? I mean, you could see that Imavov definitely had the range off of Curtis for sure. But for Curtis not to have any answers there, I thought was a little odd. I don't really think if you ran this one back, anything would change, unfortunately. Imavov's striking, I think, was really on point. The power in that right hand, the crack and the speed, his ability to extend all the way out and then come right all the way back right to the defensive position, I thought was really, really impressive. You could see the technique in the cross as he threw it. It just it wasn't a great night for Curtis. I feel terribly for him that these headbutts are going to be like his story for 2023.
Yeah.
But that's how it goes sometimes, man. And hopefully the next fight that he gets, this doesn't happen to him again. But Imavov, I think they both lost really in this one, right? Because Imavov was winning that fight. Chris Curtis gets another headbutt nonsense to screw with his money. It was all bad, man. All bad.
It really was. It really was. Matchup, Mr. Imavov, since we're going to kind of treat him as the winner. Mark, give me a name.
Yeah, if we're not going to do a rematch, which is, I guess, certainly possible, but I agree. I have the same take as Omar. I'm not sure that it's something that we need to do. I think you kind of treat Imavov as the winner here. And I'm going to say Roman Dolidze.
Whew. Banger alert. Omar?
And this is for Imavov.
Yes.
Imavov. I don't mind the Roman Dolidze. I would have actually even said Derek Brunson, but we all know Derek Brunson at this point is fighting the Ginger Khabib. So I don't think that's happening. I feel like we've thrown like 8 people at Jack Hermanson. Is Jack Hermanson lined up with somebody?
He's not. He's not.
Throw him at Jack Hermanson. Let's see what Jack Hermanson's got.
Okay. Okay, let's jump into our lightning round. So if you don't know, the lightning round is where I challenge Mark and Omar to give me their lightningest, quickest takes on the remainder of these fights. Let us begin in the women's flyweight division. Ugh, this one broke my heart. Jasmine Jasudavicius defeats my girl Miranda Maverick by UD. Omar, go first.
Yeah, this one was kind of a heartbreaker, man. I definitely had that first round for Maverick. She looked good. She looked bouncy. She looked mobile. Once we got into the second round, things changed quite a bit. Third round got even worse. Come to find out, apparently Maverick was having some eye issues in that fight. From her own statement, it sounded like it was towards the end of the second round, which doesn't inspire much confidence considering she was kind of getting her ass beat in the beginning of the second round. But she did have some eye issues, it looks like, at the end of the second round, all the way through the third round, where she was essentially blind in her left eye, which left her mentally messed up, obviously trying to not only deal with it, but genuinely concerned that she's just now gone blind. So definitely a lot to deal with for sure. Even with all that taken into consideration, you know what I mean? She still lost that second round for me, even if I give her the bye on the third one. It wasn't a great look in the second round. So tough night for her for sure. Hopefully her eye is okay and she comes back better at that point, but a real disappointing night for Maverick.
Mark?
Yeah, I did read about the eye thing as well, but same take as Omar, that the whole second round, for the most part, she looked terrible. So pre-eye, post-eye, that was the worst Miranda Maverick that we have seen thus far. I thought it was a really disappointing performance from her. She just looked like she was getting out physical everywhere, and part of it might be that Jasmine Jasudavicius is much better than we realized. She's 3-1 now. Her only loss is to Natalia Silva, and Natalia Silva might be special. So maybe it's time to pay a bit more attention to Jasmine. And she did look very good, but I also thought Maverick looked very bad. She looks far from the girl who burst onto the scene, and I think maybe she needs to reevaluate some things.
I will say really quick before we do move on that Jasudavicius's head control and her whizzer are fucking primo. Like, they made all the difference in that fight, and it was something to really, really take away.
Okay, in the women's bantamweight division. Wait.
I think he's... Yep.
Nope. In the bantamweight division, excuse me.
Zahabi. There it is.
Yes. Let me make this bigger. That's right. Ayman Zahabi defeats Aori Qileng by knockout in the very first round. Omar, take it.
Yeah, this was a great little performance. Not really much to take away from it. It happened pretty early on, but Zahabi was able to land a nasty, nasty left hook right on... How are we pronouncing this gentleman's name? Aori King?
Aori Qileng, I believe.
Qileng?
Aori Qileng?
That's right.
Qileng?
Qileng.
I'll take that. Zahabi landed a nasty, nasty left hook on Qileng. That just put him right in the ground. The crazy thing was he goes to celebrate for a minute. The referee's like, nope, finish him. Went full Shang Tsung on him.
Finish him.
And Zahabi went down, cracked him 2 more times while he was already turtled up, the poor guy. And that was it.
Mark.
Yeah, what a finish from Zahabi, man. He reached for a takedown with the left, threw the overhand right to make Aori Qileng focus on that, and then stepped through with the power left hand that had been holding his leg to end it. That was a beautiful, do I even call it a combination? I guess it's a combination. But yeah, awesome moment for him and for us for the two of them to get that type of win in Canada. He throws in asking Drake for a Rolex because why not? But yeah, good night for the Zahabis.
Okay, let's see. In the featherweight division, Kyle Nelson defeats Blake Builder by UD. Mark, take it.
Yeah, it's funny how it goes sometimes in MMA. You see Blake Builder debut. It's in his home country. He's got the crowd behind him. It's the right type of opponent. He looks great. And then you see him against a guy he can't take down, and props to Kyle Nelson for that. But, like, he's not quite the shiny new toy that we thought. So Nelson did a great job stuffing takedowns. He won the striking exchanges pretty much all fight long, and he gets himself a nice win in Canada.
Omar.
Yeah, I was actually a little surprised. I didn't really know I didn't really know how this fight was going to go because Blake Builder looks genuinely like the better fighter. Just watching their overall movement, watching their overall styles. But Nelson seemed like a guy in a backyard trying to swat a fly as he's walking around and just popping Builder every chance that he got. Every time Builder tried to come in, the jab was out there, the jab was getting popped. I thought it was a fun fight. I think it was a little rough for Builder, especially with, I think, the hype that he had coming in behind him. But I thought the call was right. I had Nelson winning 2-1. I think a couple people had him winning 3-1 or 3-0. But either way, I thought Nelson was the proper winner in that fight.
That's cool, man. Yeah, for sure. Mark, did you go? Yes.
Yep.
Flyweight division, Stefan. Is it Stefan or Steven?
Steven.
Steven
Right,
Ursek. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Steven.
In the flyweight division, Steven Ursek. Yeah. Ursek defeats David Dvorak by UD. Mark, go.
For a guy who carries a reputation as a jiu-jitsu ace, Steve Ursek did pretty damn well in the striking against a skilled striker in Dvorak. In round one, it looked like Dvorak was probably settling into what was going to be a usual David Dvorak fight. Ursek was hanging with him, but Dvorak was kind of looking like he was controlling it. But then round two, he gets fucking blitzed with a huge right, then a head kick, then a guillotine choke that Ursek adjusts a couple times. Like, that was about a minute of hell for Dvorak. So credit to him for surviving all that. But in the third, it was all there to play for. Ursek kind of turned to the grappling more so in that round. He used it to guide him through and gets a short notice debut victory over a top 10 fighter.
Good stuff. Omar.
Yeah, man. The one thing that's crazy about these flyweights, man, is their movement. I will never not be amazed at the pace and the movement that these type of fighters can put on at this low weight. I definitely didn't even realize that Ursek was a crazy jiu-jitsu guy because, like you said, his striking was on point. I actually thought his striking was really great. I thought both of their strikings were pretty on point. I thought it was a very competitive fight. I definitely thought that Ursek was able to eke that out. I think when we talked last week, Dvorak was the favorite. Or I don't even think we got into that fight to that extent.
Yeah, he was the favorite for sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I would definitely assume he would have been the favorite. And Ursek definitely shut a lot of miles up, I think, that night because it was a great performance from him. Definitely wasn't one of those fluke performances or anything like that. He looked great, and he won.
Okay, last one. Diana Belbita, UD over Maria Oliveira. Omar, go.
Yeah, Belbita's got hands, man. I got to say, I really like her style, and a lot of it might have to do with my genuine bias towards Muay Thai stances now, but yeah. She's got a very nice tight stance, chin down, hands up, body just a little bit forward, and her striking I thought was great. Was able to defend really nicely when it came to the strikes, was able to defend nicely when it came to any kind of ground attacks that were coming, and she even had a little ground attack of her own. I thought the third round was probably the sketchiest round in that fight as far as trying to figure out who won that round. But I thought Belbita had rounds 1 and 2 pretty clearly. And then round 3, like I said, I think Oliveira tried to turn it up a little bit. I think she knew she was down 2-0. and potentially won that round. But I had Belbita winning the fight as it was.
Mark?
Yeah, Belbita may not be the winningest fighter ever, but she is a G. I mean, she is always in there to scrap. Yeah. In this one, she set the tone immediately against a girl who people thought was going to have the striking advantage in Oliveira. She actually turned Oliveira into a wrestler, and Oliveira did have some success there, actually, but all the damage in this fight came from Belbita, and it was a big win for her, and it set the tone for Canada, who ended up winning every single fight they had on that card.
That's right.
Spoilers, Oliveira was cut, so that sucks.
She was cut already, wow. Okay, let us now move on. That does it for our recap of UFC 289. Touching on every fight. There you go, you're welcome. Let's put a bow on this by finding out who rose and fell in our very own rankings system, or should I say Mark's very own ranking system that we call the Priaulx Rankings. Mark?
Let's do it. Not a ton. There were a lot of results that were the kind of result of, like, Charles Oliveira won. He stays number one. Ige beats Landwehr, so, like, they're going to stay right where they are. You know, those kind of things. There's a lot of those. But we did have a few movers. The risers are Marc-Andre Barriault. He moves from number 41 to number 33 in my middleweight ranking, so a nice little climb for him off the back of the win over Eryk Anders. Next one, pretty big jump. Yasmin Yasudavicius moves from number 30 to number 17 in the women's flyweight rankings after beating Miranda Maverick convincingly. And then the man we just spoke about, Steve Erceg, goes from being unranked, not in the UFC, to being my number 14 ranked flyweight in the world, and he is actually the same. Shit. He's actually the same in the UFC's rankings.
Wow.
I just checked those right before this.
God damn.
I mean, he beat the number 10 fighter. And
yeah.
On that note, the number 10 fighter, David Dvorak, he was my number 11 at the time, but he is my faller this week. He has fallen to the same place the UFC has him, which is, you guessed it, one spot behind Erceg, number 15 in the flyweight rankings.
Wow.
And that concludes the rankings this week.
Okay. Let us now go right into our segment Inside the MMA Sphere with Omar Artola. Find out what's going on in the world of MMA outside of the cage. Omar?
Gentlemen, another week of not so damn much. However, that just means we get through this a little bit faster, and we can get to next week's cards a little bit sooner because we still have quite a bit to get through. So, right off the top, we have Conor McGregor back in the news. Some of you might be wondering, hey, this could be good news, or this could be really shitty news. It's a little bit of both. A little fun, a little mayhem. It's probably the right amount of Conor McGregor.
Oh, jeez, yeah. I couldn't think of what you were talking about. And
Conor McGregor recently ends his losing streak by knocking out the mascot of the Miami Heat with a nasty-ass left hook. And then one more for good measure while the mascot is already on the ground. I gotta be honest, the first one, when I saw it, I was like, oh, damn, he must have been prepared for that because he looked like he really hit him like really hard, but he must have had some sort of cushion or something in there. The second one, once he was already on the ground, I was like, oh, he might have fucked that kid up in there. And lo and behold, the guy from the mascot ends up in the ER as a result of the shot. There were no details as to how bad or whatever it was. But maybe, and this is just nobody, basically, me and nobody saying this, maybe let's not have professional fighters hit random people anymore. Just a thought. It might be the right way to go. Safer, you know?
I couldn't believe it when I saw the news because when I saw the clip that night, you get all these notifications.
Sure.
Conor McGregor, nice match. So I'm like, all came up. So I click on it. The first thing I thought was, fuck, how much padding is in those masks? Like, he hit him kind of hard. So the next day I sent him to the hospital. I'm like, well, there you go. He definitely fucking swung way too hard.
And, like, I'm trying to figure out if it was the first one or if it was the second one. Because like I said, when I watched it, I was like, the second one looked worse than the first one.
Yeah,
If I'm being
I think it was
honest.
the second one, dude.
Yeah.
I thought the first one. I thought
Bro,
the first one was.
looked like he. The second one looked like he hit him with a defibrillator. Like the whole dude's body just like jumped up in the air when he hit him.
Well, the
Yeah, it
first one
wasn't
I
good.
thought it looked kind of staged. I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
But maybe he was like, dude, why did
What do you mean
you
it's
hit?
supposed to be staged?
That's what I'm saying. Like the first punch looked so fake to me. I was like, that didn't hurt the guy.
Oh
Like,
no, I didn't.
Oh, you're saying that's weird. I see. Sorry.
Wait, that punch did not look fake by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, I thought it did.
Staged, 100%.
But it looked like he was
Planned,
only hitting the
100%.
mask. It looked like he was only hitting the mask. I'm like, isn't the mask like inches from his real face?
You hope so. Well, so in some respect, in some of those suits, those masks are actually like their faces.
Right.
Can sometimes be under where their things are. Yeah, but did you see how hard Conor McGregor hit that dude? Like, he might have got a piece in there, man. It doesn't take much for a professional left-handed killer to graze a normal human being. And Mike, I could tap you on the leg with a leg kick, and you'd be with a Charlie horse. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but I'm saying,
it doesn't
like,
take much for normal folks to get fucked up.
I felt like that first punch, especially, it looked like he just hit the mask and not the guy's face. And I was like, that's not real. The second one, I think he probably was a little overzealous and like might have like broken his teeth or something.
It does make me wonder if they planned the first one, not the second one.
That was
so
my
much.
wonder. If there was supposed to even be a second shot, or if Conor just took that upon himself and then fucking threw it way too hard.
The only reason that it made me I was believing that it was probably part of the show was because you had people after the second shot coming over and like, you know, like doing dumb shit to the mascot, like trying to wake him back up.
That's
and
what
like
I'm
blowing
saying.
whatever at him. The best part, though, really the best part, was after this man is probably really fucked up in this mascot outfit and everything. Everybody's having a great time. He's spraying his title spray all over this guy like if it's fucking Febreze. It's the greatest thing in the world. It's hilarious. So that was Conor McGregor's weekend. You guys want to know how Floyd Mayweather's weekend went?
Oh my god, dude!
Because we're gonna talk about it.
He fought John Gotti the third.
Fucking amazing. So I didn't know who this was. I'm over here like, am I completely like away from everything that is boxing? Like, do I not know? I'm over here. Is this Arturo Gotti? Like, something to do with Arturo Gotti? Like, did I miss something completely? And then obviously I did a little bit of research, and I'm like, so this is the crime lord Gotti and his like son or like third son or something along those lines, grandson. So one, we're gonna keep the Gotti name alive, like they weren't mob bosses to that extent. That's fine. But then I guess he gets into a fight with Floyd Mayweather here, and it's a big deal. And I didn't know about it till Saturday night, which is when it went on. But apparently, this was a spectacle, as most Floyd Mayweather spectacles are. Exhibition bout still, so none of it ever really fucking matters in the first place. But Mayweather obviously walks out with like 100 people, his grandson in hand, which apparently was also a big deal online, that his grandson had never been shown online, and if you want to come see them.
Wait, now I'm Googling and it's saying it's his son. But on the clip I watched, they said it was his grandson.
He's a grandfather
Regardless,
already?
it is the Gotti crime family.
Jeez.
Maybe it is
doubt
his son.
Anyway, so Floyd Mayweather comes out. There's like 100 people with him. Gotti has a significantly smaller entourage, but an entourage nonetheless. 200 people end up getting in this goddamn ring. We get everything going. We get everything moving. And apparently Floyd Mayweather and Gotti are talking shit the entire fight. Mayweather is obviously piecing him up and having fun and doing whatever the hell he wants with him, because at the end of the day, he's Floyd Mayweather and Gotti is not. But Tony Weeks, who was the referee, continues to remind them that they can't be just shit talking. That, you know, I'm running this. You gotta stop shit talking. No more talking. Keep your mouth shut. And they didn't listen, and they continued to shit talk. By the time we get to the beginning of the 6th round, the referee Tony Weeks completely waves off the fight I guess disqualifies both of them for shit talking, which I will never be okay with, ever. Not even in an exhibition fight. Just let them fight.
Yeah, confirmed is the grandson. Please
Okay.
continue.
Dude,
so
I didn't
Tony
even
Big
know
Wade's
that
off the
you could be
fight.
disqualified for talking.
So I was talking with somebody else about this, and apparently that's an old school boxing thing, really. That you're not, that there is supposed to be sportsmanship, I guess, during the fight. I'm not a person to subscribe to that. If you're going to let people get into a fight, let them get into a fight. If they want to talk shit during a fight, let them talk shit during a fight. If you talk shit during a fight, you get punched in the face, that's what happens. So I'm not really a big subscriber of that, especially not stopping a fight. I think that's the dumbest fucking thing in the world. All the work that those dudes put in, you're not okay with the language in the ring, and so you stop the fight. The fuck, go home. Go back to the goddamn fucking morality police with that. That's ridiculous and a dumbass waste of time. Regardless, after Tony Weeks waves off this fight, John Gotti decides, I'm not done. Pushes Weeks aside, essentially goes around him, and tries to continue to fight Mayweather. The worst part about this is Mayweather still pieced his ass up, even in that moment.
He did.
And then the entourages come in, people start to brawl, and things get really out of control or whatever. And all hell breaks loose, and that becomes the story of that Mayweather fight. Gotti goes on.
You think that ending was planned, though?
I mean, how do you plan something so ridiculous? Because you'd have to get the referee involved with it, too. And Tony Weeks doesn't seem the type to be putting on that kind of shit.
Fair enough, I guess.
But the crazy thing after that was John Gotti decides to obviously go on Twitter, talk a little bit more shit, gets Conor McGregor involved, and is like, Conor McGregor, have our back. And Conor McGregor's like, I stand with the Gottis. And
I stand with the Gottis. The war's on.
The war's on. It's a very odd time that we're living in right now. Very, very odd. But that was Floyd Mayweather's weekend. So, two very interesting weekends from two very interesting men. There you go. We only have a handful of fight announcements. Most of the fight announcements will probably start coming out tomorrow on Wednesday. Usually the UFC takes Tuesday to actually make those fight announcements, and then they deliver them for the rest of the week. So next week's show, we will probably have more fight announcements then. But for right now, we are starting off with Josh Fremd versus Jamie Pickett, added to UFC Vegas 78 on August 12th. Myrana Moros. Why can't I say her name right?
Marina?
Yeah. Marina Moros versus Karine Silva has been added to UFC's 292 card on August 19th. Song Yadong versus Rob Font, added to UFC 292 as well.
Yes.
Vivian Araujo versus Casey O'Neill, added to UFC 293 on September 9th.
That's good too.
Carlos Ulberg back in the mix versus... Any guesses, Mark? Because I know you want to give him a real name. That's what I'm saying. I know you wanted to be a real name.
Yeah, who is it? Tell me.
Dawoon Jung.
Okay.
It's okay, right? Yeah.
It's okay.
All right, so that fight has also been added to UFC's 293 card on September 9th. Last but definitely not least, we have Lupi Godinez versus Sam Hughes. That has been added to UFC September 16th card, and that is all we have for you this week.
Nice.
Okay,
I like it better when you don't know the matchups. I'm not texting you shit no more. You're gonna find out now every week on the show, like everybody else.
Yeah, that Moroz Karini Silva one is sexy. I like that one.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
Go ahead, Mike.
And now looking towards the future. We have a triple header weekend for MMA fans to delight in, with action from Bellator 1 and UFC. Not 1, excuse me, PFL. Let us begin talking about PFL. Where are my notes here? So first, let's quickly talk about the PFL that just went down. Loughnane versus Pinedo. Mark, start us out here talking about that main event. in that event overall?
Yeah, so a lot of relevant things happened on this card. As we've mentioned a lot on this show, we have a fucking ton to do. We've already been doing this for an hour and a half. We've still got to preview a Bellator event and UFC event. So just very quickly, I will tell you, Chris Wade bounced back with a round 1 sub. Unfortunately, it was not enough to get him into the playoffs. Gabriel Braga knocked out Marlon Moraes, our boy, unfortunately, in round 1. Marlon Moraes then retired for the second time, said he wanted to do it in the PFL cage because that was, his home when it was World Series of Fighting and all that. So glad Marlon Moraes is going to stop getting knocked out. I'm sure Omar will have a little more to say about that one. Bubba Jenkins jumped into the playoffs with a round 1 sub of Sung Bin Jo. Movlid Haibulaev murked Tyler Diamond with a round 2 submission. And then the fucking big one. Jesus Pinedo in I don't even know what it was, a minute and a half or something, knocks out Brendan Loughnane with a knee. Brendan Loughnane has been arguably the biggest star in the PFL on the men's side. I'm trying to think of the other divisions. I mean, he's been huge there. He has looked great. I said it last week, we were all looking forward to this potential rematch in the playoffs that we could have seen between Loughnane and Movlid. And now Loughnane doesn't even make the playoffs off of one loss just like that. So his season's over. We won't see him again until next season. And Jesus Pinedo gets a huge friggin' win and kind of bursts onto the scene here. He's not really a guy that was getting looked at in this regard necessarily. He does have a good record. But we're going to see now in these playoffs. I don't know. I actually haven't looked at how it matches up. I don't know if he's fighting Bubba or Movlid or who, but I'm going to look as I hand this over to Omar for his thoughts.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised by the main event. I think it's safe to say Brendan got caught for sure, but that shit happens, man. And this is what happens when you fight a guy that doesn't have a Wikipedia page and he's dangerous. You can get caught with a knee, and it looked. To Loughlane's credit, it looked like he ate as much of it as he could. Obviously, it didn't put him out completely, but there's not really much you can do when you get landed flush like that. So stuff like that's going to happen, and good for Pinedo. I mean, it's a big moment for him. Hopefully, he takes that momentum and moves along with it. I still think Brendan Loughlane is probably the better fighter overall, so I won't be surprised to see him come back next season and still put the beats on people. But this is only his second loss in the PFL, and the first loss that he had was against Movlid. And that was a split decision. That was a really tough fight. So I don't expect this to be the beginning of any kind of downward spiral for Loughlane. I think he just got caught.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, he is fighting Bubba Jenkins in the first round of the playoffs. So we will certainly find out just how good he is.
Perfect.
Yeah, okay, you guys want to look ahead now to PFL 5?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Am I just taking it?
Yeah, take it.
Okay. So again, as we've said, we're kind of just running through this one quickly, and then we'll give you some real previews of Bellator and the UFC. But quality card here. They in terms of the names, you have Julia Budd on the card fighting Martina Jindrova. You have Danilo Marquez, who's a UFC veteran. He's fighting Marcelo Nunes. Dennis Goltsov, who has been one of the top heavyweights for a while and this season as well. He's fighting UFC vet Jorgen De Castro. Henan Ferreira is fighting Mateusz Scheffel. Got Aspen Ladd on the card. And then the two big fights are kind of the co-main and the main, which is Larissa Pacheco fighting Amber Leibrock, or Leibrock, I forget how she says it. Not a ton to say about that one. Amber is way bigger than Pacheco. She has a 6-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. So could come into play. And she did get a nasty KO of Martina Jindrova in her last fight, but I would guess it's probably not going to go very well for her. I think Pacheco will probably work some takedowns and maybe finish that one on the ground one way or the other. And then the main event is where the intrigue is for me. The main event is at heavyweight. It is between Ante D'Elia and Maurice Green, another UFC vet and training partner of John Jones, as is Jorgen De Castro, who's also on the card. But the reason this one's interesting is because it carries some wild implications. So Ante D'Elia is the defending PFL heavyweight champion. He missed the first set of fights of this year's regular season. I forget why, but some issue where he couldn't fight. So this is his first fight this season, and he's not going to get a second one. But he can still make the playoffs if he can finish Maurice Green in 6 minutes and 19 seconds or less. The man he would jump to make the playoffs, if he does that, is Maurice Green. So all Maurice Green has to do to make the playoffs is to last 6 minutes and 20 seconds. He can get knocked out cold at 6:20, and he's in, and D'Elia's out. So I can't think of a time where I've seen something quite like that in MMA, where really it's just on a guy to survive for 6 minutes and 20 seconds, have a shot at making a ton of money here. But I do think D'Elia can do it. He's an animal. He's got a ton of round one finishes. He's got a lot recently, and he's going to come out blazing. So I would not bet against him.
I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Is Ante D'Elia actually 32 years old? Because that motherfucker looks like he's minimum 42 years old.
Yeah, he has a super old face. Yes.
That's crazy. I'm 33, and I look at least 10 years younger than that dude.
Yeah, that's been a talking point at times.
Oh, my God. I'm looking at his picture like, this guy looks like he's like him and Glover grew up together. And no, not even close. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. We thought that McGee gentleman had some roughness, but that one might be worse, man. It's a rough one.
Okay. Are we jumping ahead now to Bellator?
Yes, sir. Let's go to Bellator.
Let's do it, because it's getting late for daddies. Daddies, plural. You don't count, Omar. Cats don't count.
I feel like this is the card where, like,
Dude, this card's
I
stacked.
feel like UFC is fairly quick. Like, this card, there's some fucking fights on here.
This is one of the...
You guys have to put your kids to bed. My child puts himself to bed at my feet while I do my podcast.
He's talking about a feline, not a human. Imagine if you were saying that about a kid.
Correct. No.
Okay. Bellator 297. Let's see. Where is this fight going down? Bellator. Yes. In Chicago, in the Wintrust Arena.
Wintrust Arena. Okay.
My bad. I still am on a delay. But we are
Yeah, you are.
battling.
Working through it, baby.
against
We're powering
fucking
through it.
Swimming against the stream here. Okay. The first fight. Oh, before we preview some of these Bellator fights, any other fights or fighters that you guys want to just quickly spotlight for our listeners and viewers?
Omar, you want to say any, or you want me to take it?
You can take it. This piece of shit website isn't working.
There's a lot of solid fights on this undercard. I feel like Bellator has done very well lately to have quality undercards, which was not always the case for Bellator. But Timur Khizriev is fighting Richie Smulin. That's a good fight. Carl Moore is fighting Alex Polizzi. Solid light heavyweight scrap there. Emmanuel Sanchez is on the card. He's fighting Archie Colgan. Let's see, who else? Jaleel Willis on the card, fighting Ramazan Kuramagomedov. It's a tough one to fucking get out of your mouth. Gadzi Rabadanov, who we saw fight at the Ryzen event, he's on the card against Peter Buist. Why did I think Austin Vanderford was on the card? Is he off now? I don't see his name anymore.
I don't see it either.
Oh, yeah, there you go. It says canceled. I don't know why it got canceled, but it's canceled. So, yeah, that's the undercard. But, yeah, solid, bunch of solid fights for sure.
How many variations of Magomedov do you think there actually are in the world? Because
don't know,
now
but
we
so
have
many.
run into Magomedov, Nurmagomedov, and now Kuramagomedov.
That's silly.
There's got to be more out there. There's got to be a ton of them out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Magomedov.
That's right. That's right. The Magomedov. That's correct. That's
or was it Magomed
another
Magomedov?
extension of the Magomedovs.
Magomed
There's
Karamov.
the OG Magomedovs. Bro, what if they all started as Magomedovs and then like their Nurmagomedovs went that way?
Yeah.
And then like the Magomedovs went that way.
I'll trace back to the same man.
Just the Magomedovs.
Just Magomed. Somebody
first
named
Magomed.
Magomed.
Yes, the first Magomed.
Okay. Let us talk first about Daniel James versus Gokhan Saricam. Where is Daniel James? There he is. Another clash of the big boys. Daniel James recently knocked out my guy, Marcelo Gome. Again, I'm like the freaking... I'm like the Drake curse for fighters.
I remember that.
So you have Gokhan Saricam, the 32-year-old out of Istanbul, Turkey. He's 8-2 as a pro. He is 6'3", walks around 450-ish, 440, 450. Of his 8 victories, 5 have come by knockout. And he is coming off of a loss against Oleg Popov back at Bellator 291 in February of this year. He will be standing across from Daniel James, the Predator, the 41-year-old out of Chicago, Illinois. He will be the hometown boy in this clash. Of his 15 victories, 11 have come by knockout, and he is riding a nice 5-fight professional win streak coming into this event. Mark, start us off. Give us your quick thoughts and ultimately your pick over James and Saricam.
Okay, so very close odds. Saricam is minus 120. Daniel James is even money at plus 100. James has a 3-inch height and 4-inch reach advantage, and he's looked really good through a couple fights in Bellator thus far.
Yep.
And Gokhan Saricam is solid, but despite the scary-sounding name, he's not one of these elite-level wrestlers necessarily. He does wrestle and can wrestle, but I don't think he's an unstoppable wrestler. And I think I'm going to say that Daniel James' takedown D holds up here. He's looked really solid in that department thus far. He's a huge man, and I think he can defend some takedowns and tee off. So give me Daniel James, round 1 knockout in his hometown.
Yeah, man. Okay. Omar?
Yeah, I would definitely have to agree. Gokhan is a gigantic human being, 6'3", almost 250 pounds, a gigantic human being. All that being said, Daniel James is even bigger. I think as long as Daniel James can keep the fight standing, I think the hands are probably going to work a lot better for him overall than they will for Gokhan. I think the length advantage that Daniel James presents and the power behind it, I think it's just going to be too much. I expect this to be another finish under his belt, and I think it'll happen in round 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the giganticer man here. Daniel James, the Predator, and the hometown guy. I had some, this is a different conversation, but I had some very interesting conversations with the color commentator for APFC, David Evans, who has most recently fought for the PFL Challenger Series, talking about fighting in your hometown, whether that is the to your advantage or to your disadvantage. I guess the trade-offs that are made with fighting in your hometown. Very interesting stuff. I personally, I don't think I would want to do it. I don't think I would like to do that. I'm opening a can of worms here. Let me get to my pick. I'm going to go with Daniel James. I will say second round knockout. Let's move on.
There's a lot more distractions, I feel like, when you fight at home.
Yeah,
there's a lot more distractions that end up messing with you.
Yep. Okay, Corey Anderson versus Phil Davis. Okay, we have Corey overtime Anderson, the 33-year-old out of Rockton, Illinois. 16-6 as a pro with 1 no contest. Half of his 16 victories have come by way of knockout. He does not own a submission win on his record. He is coming off of a loss at the hands of Vadim Nemkov back in November of 2022. He will be standing across from Mr. Wonderful Phil Davis, the 38-year-old out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 24-6, won no contest. About, 11 victories have come by way of finish, 13 by decision. Okay, Omar, start us off here. Give us your take and your pick of Anderson versus Davis.
This fight is still so crazy to me because, for those of you who aren't aware, obviously Phil Davis used to be in the UFC at this point close to a decade ago.
Wow.
The last fight he had in the UFC was, I believe, 2015 against Ryan Bader, which he lost by split decision. Since that time, he has again lost to Ryan Bader, lost to Vadim Nemkov twice. He's basically beaten everybody else that Bellator has thrown at him. Phil Davis is known for a few things. He's known for his length. He's known for, I would say, primarily his wrestling. And he's known for his ability to not give a shit what you think about his performance as long as he wins. The man is probably, and I think one of the reasons why he ended up, I don't remember if he got cut or if his contract expired, but I can tell you one of the reasons why the UFC didn't, he did choose to leave, right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I'm assuming the UFC didn't like do everything in their power to get him back is because his performances were never the type of performances you really wanted to go out of your way to watch, unfortunately, right? The man was a winner for sure. Did a lot of winning, a lot of good control on the ground, a great wrestler, just not the most entertaining fighter, unfortunately. Corey Anderson, on the other hand, is also one of these guys that was a big-time wrestler when he came in, had some hands, a little bit more dynamic and exciting than Phil Davis was, but maybe just marginally so, not significantly. Somehow, though, these guys, both in the UFC for as long as they were, had never fought each other in the same weight class and all that. And now we find ourselves in 2023 with these two men about to fight each other. And I really don't know what to do. From a stylistic perspective, I think these two match up almost incredibly well with each other. And I really have to try to figure out, you know, who probably has the greatest path to victory. And the reality is you're going to squeak out this path to victory, I think, either way you swing it. But Phil Davis's propensity to not lose is what I'm banking on here. So this might be the most boring fight you'll ever see in your life, but I'm pretty sure Phil Davis will win this fight. So I will go with Phil Davis by split decision.
Mark?
Me or you, Mike?
You.
Mike, you awake over there?
Yeah.
I have a lot of very similar thoughts on this fight. First off, I thought it was going to be a pick'em fight, which is what I feel in my head and obviously what Omar feels in his head. It's not. Corey Anderson is minus 175. Phil Davis is plus 145 as the underdog. Fantastic fight. Two guys who are basically the same size, who have very similar styles of fighting, who have both, as Omar said, traveled the path from the UFC to Bellator, who have attained almost identical levels of success in the sport, who've been around at the top of the game for a while now and have somehow never crossed paths. So I am excited that we're going to get to see it. Of course, we know the wrestling is fantastic for both of them. On paper, maybe you'd think Phil Davis should be a little notch above. He's the more credentialed, I guess I would say, of the two. But I think Corey is good enough in the wrestling, especially in MMA wrestling, that it may be somewhat of a wash. Which leads me to the feet, but it's tricky there too because Corey definitely carries more power and is the better offensive striker, I would say. But Phil is definitely the better defensive striker and really excels at nullifying guys and not getting hit and making them fight his fight, whereas Corey can be clipped. So, I don't know. It's like it really feels dead even in my mind. It's tough to call. It's only 3 rounds. I really feel like this matchup is like 5-5 if they fought 10 times. So I truly am just flipping a coin here for the purpose of making this fight pick. But generally speaking, if Corey Anderson is not getting KO'd, he is finding a way to win the fight. The only guys that really beat him are guys that can knock him out, and I don't see Phil Davis doing that. So I needed something to push me one way or the other. I will use that. I'll say Corey Anderson wins a split decision.
Okay, I feel like I'm another different take on this fight. I really like Corey Anderson in this matchup. I think he has better power, and I think overall he's a more dangerous fighter than Mr. Wonderful. Maybe I'm a little bit of somebody who has never been too high on Phil Davis's skill set. He's a wrestler. He has a lot of decision wins on his record. He's good at not losing, but I'm going to go with Corey Anderson here, a guy who has more, I think, dangerous hands. He has, I think, a better motor overall. Phil Davis has a great motor and great cardio, but I think Corey Anderson, I think he fights with a bit more urgency and a little bit more of a chip on his shoulder, so I'm going to roll with him. I will take Corey Anderson by unanimous decision. Okay. Co-main event. What's up?
I just said I like it.
Okay. I wonder if this is going to be all fucked up with the delay on the audio, or if it's going to like sink in.
Yeah, I really hope not.
Okay, we'll see. Okay, here we go. Co-main event, Bellator 297 in Chicago, Illinois. We have Sergio, the Phenom Pettis, taking on Patricio Pitbull. Sergio Pettis, the 29-year-old out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He's 22-5 as a professional mixed martial artist. 4 wins by knockout, another 4 wins by submission. He's riding a 5-fight win streak as a professional coming into this fight. The last 4 of those all being under the Bellator banner. That's right. He is undefeated thus far in Bellator. Taking on perhaps his toughest challenge to date, Patricio Pitbull, the 35-year-old out of Brazil. He is 35-5 with 11 knockouts, 12 submissions to his record. He's riding a 3-fight win streak after that loss to AJ McKee, including the revenge fight against AJ McKee, in which he got a UD over him, and then he defeated Adam Boric, and then Kleber Herbst back in December of 2022. Mark, start this one off. Pitbull versus Sergio. Give us your take and your pick.
Love this fight. Another fantastic fight on this Bellator card. Probably the coolest fight of the weekend, if we're being honest. Any promotion considered, at least for me. The favorite here is the challenger. Pitbull is minus 200. Sergio Pettis is a plus 165 underdog. So, yeah, we have Patricio Pitbull, one of the greatest featherweights to ever live, a man who has also been the Bellator lightweight champion, who will now try to earn a belt in a 3rd weight class. He drops to 135 to take on Sergio Pettis, who is returning from injury to defend his belt. They're the same height. Sergio has a 3.5-inch reach advantage, which is crazy. Despite Pitbull dropping down a weight class here, he still cannot have a reach advantage over anyone. But, hey, that's nothing new for Pitbull. He's very used to being at a reach disadvantage, and this will be less than usual. And when it comes to the pick, I feel bad because I'm about to kind of dismiss Sergio Pettis. And I did the same thing with him against Kyoji Horiguchi, and he made me look dumb by brutally KOing him. But at the same time, I was right. Until that happened, Kyoji was dominating Sergio in that fight. And I think the same thing happens here, minus the hero comeback win from Sergio Pettis. Pitbull, to me, is too good at avoiding that exact type of big shot. He maintains range so well. He counters beautifully. He's going to feel like he's actually fighting someone the same size as him for once, which I'm sure will feel wild to him. Might feel like it opens up his offense more than usual. And I think he's going to school Sergio Pettis. I guess I'll say 49-46. I feel bad not giving Pettis a round, but 50-45 may end up being more accurate. I think Patricio Pitbull wins a clear UD and adds a third belt to the resume.
Omar.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, unfortunately. I think Pitbull, especially going down in weight, I think it's just going to make him faster. I don't think he loses a ton of power. To be honest, I think he has more than enough to spare. But him getting faster seems like a real problem. And just like Mark said, the Kyoji Horiguchi win, as good as it was, leading up to that point, Pettis was getting worked. And I can't see Patricio not having very similar to success. And to be honest, with hands as rough as Pitbull's are, I think he probably eats a lot more damage and even worse so than he did against Kyoji. So I'm actually going to go with a stoppage here. I'm going to go with a round 2 KO from Pitbull.
In 40 fights, Pitbull has only been finished twice. He's been knocked out once and submitted once. To be fair, in Pettis's 27 fights, he also has only been finished twice. Obviously, a better rate or ratio for Pitbull. Guys, I'm going to be honest with y'all. I'm compromised for this pick.
I didn't think about that.
I'm compromised. I have a conflict of interest, so I probably shouldn't even be making a pick. But for fuck's sake, I'm going with my boy, Sergio Pettis. He's going to get it done.
You should have just taken the bye. You should just not pick Sergio Pettis. Anything with a Pettis behind it, you shouldn't even pick it. Just don't do it.
I'm compromised. I'll take Pettis by UD. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm rolling with
That's
the
fine.
Team Pettis. By the way,
Mike's going to be like, I didn't pick against you. My friends are assholes, but I didn't pick against you.
by the way, as it turns out, at APFC events, I actually have talked to Sergio more than I've talked to Anthony. Because, I mean, Anthony's Anthony. And he has, he's a pretty famous guy. So I also don't want to fanboy out on these guys. But I have had a chance to have a nice conversation with Sergio Pettis about our kids, and he was like, what a fucking great guy. So
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool.
That is dope. Yeah.
yeah. All right, man. Let's go to the main event now. Bellator 297 on the marquee of this event going down in Chicago. Vadim Nemkov versus Yoel Romero. So we have Nemkov, the 30-year-old out of Belgrade, Russia. 15-2 as a professional. Add 1 no contest to that. Of his 15 wins, 12 have come by way of knockout. That is an 80% finish rate. Of his 2 losses, he's been finished once and decisioned once. He has not lost a fight since 2016. He will be standing across from Yoel, Soldier of God, Romero. At the age of 46, he has amassed a record of 15 wins and 6 losses. Of his 15 wins, 13 have come by way of finish. Wow, I forget that he's only gone to decision just twice. He is riding a 2-fight win streak coming into this weekend against Alex Polizzi and Melvin Manhoef back in September. Omar, your turn to go first. Give us your take and your pick.
I want to pick Yoel Romero here. Yoel Romero is not normal. He's a specimen. 46 years old. He shouldn't be looking like that. We've got dudes. We're just talking about dudes that are like 30 years old. They look like they're pushing 50. This guy is 46 years old. This man could definitely pass for like 35. It's insane. The genes on this man are absolutely out of control. I haven't seen him lately. His physique always tends to change over time when he doesn't have a fight. Sometimes he'll get a little bit of that dad belly with the abs underneath. Other times his neck grows 3 different sizes. I don't know what version of Yoel we'll have here. At light heavyweight, I'm assuming probably one that has less neck than others. But I think that this is not really a great fight for him, if we're being honest. I do think Nemkov is just an overall better fighter. Yoel Romero has had some recent success in Bellator, but honestly, against guys who I don't really hold to a high degree, even Melvin Manhoef, as much as I love Melvin Manhoef, the end of his career is exactly that, the end of his career. And so I don't take too much stock in that win. So I'm going to go with Nemkov here. I'm going to go with, I don't think he's going to be able to stop Romero because that's a huge task in and of itself. So I'm just going to go with the decision here by Nemkov.
Mark.
All right. Vadim Nemkov, the minus 550 favorite.
Wow.
And Yoel Romero is a plus 400 underdog. There is a 2-inch height and 2.5-inch reach advantage for Vadim Nemkov. He's 30 years old, so Yoel Romero's 46. He has not lost since 2016, as Mike mentioned. He has not lost in Bellator, obviously. He is rightfully the heavy favorite against a man in Yoel who was a career middleweight. And we are rolling with Yoel Romero. I don't know how, but I don't give a fuck. I love vintage Yoel performances where he just decimates fools, and I am going to say that we somehow get one on Friday night, and I don't care if I lose a pick in the standings because I'm going with Yoel. Truthfully, though, I can see a path. He's still very, very fast and very, very good defensively. So while he may be losing the fight, I do think the fight will be close. And I think Nemkov could potentially get lulled into a little bit of a, Yoel has these moments where he's not doing so much and maybe the guard comes down a little bit and he gets too comfortable and then it happens. One big shot wobbles him. Probably at that point, Yoel does something weird and doesn't quite run at him and we're all like, oh my God, Yoel, what are you doing? But then maybe he lands another one and Nemkov goes down. And it actually happens. So I will predict that because I fucking love Yoel. I will say round number 3, TKO.
Wow.
Tell you what, if he has the same aggression that he did in the last 2 fights, he can very well put Vadim to sleep. But it's just Nemkov is just he's just so much better than the last 2 guys that he's fought. And then he's also lost to Phil Davis in the last couple of years.
What a legend.
Which makes me believe that he's definitely, he's liable to lose a fight against a fighter who is technically better than him, right? So I can't see it against Nemkov. I'd love to see it. Don't get me wrong. I might very well be rooting for you, Romero, the entire time. I can't see it.
I'm just not capable of coming on here next week and it being a world where Yoel Romero just won and I didn't pick it. So here I am.
I feel you.
Okay. My pick, here we go. I'm not picking against Vadim Nemkov since he hasn't lost since 2016, and I think he's a terrifying individual. Although Yoel Romero, probably in one of the few other equally terrifying individuals. But yeah, I'm going to go with Nemkov.
Be honest, kid. If I had to pick one who was more terrifying than the other, I gotta go Romero.
Oh, yeah.
Like just visually,
Maybe, yeah. Especially when he barks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It's
the
the one
easy
guy
pick.
that when he says "I love you," I don't feel safe.
I love you. Okay.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. I think that Nemkov by UD is the layup pick, and I'm gonna take it this time. Okay, let's shift gears because it's already after midnight, and I just got to go to bed. UFC Fight Night, Vettori versus Cannonier, going down this Saturday night at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, headlined by 2 marquee middleweights in Marvin the Italian Dream Vettori and Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. We're gonna I think we're gonna quick pick a number of these fights, guys, right? All the way up to the main event.
Yeah, Mike, I was just going to say to you, in the interest of time, I wouldn't even bother doing your intro until we get to the co-main.
Yep.
You
I
can
was
just
thinking
say
the same
this
thing,
is the
yeah.
fight and boom.
Love it. We're going to start with Dalby and Salikov. But before we do this one, are there any other fighters or names that you guys just want to quickly just pinpoint and be like, make sure you guys watch this fight?
I like the Kyung Ho Kang Christian Quinones fight. I think that's kind of a fun technique versus like pressure power fight. That's a fun one. I'm interested to see Ronnie Lawrence and Daniel Argueta. A couple others. Solid on the card.
Nice.
Zach Pagua, Modestas Bukauskas will be on there as well. Jimmy Flick, Alessandro Costa is also on there. It's a good fight. So, a couple good fights, like you said. Just nothing of real consequence, I guess.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Nicholas Dalby taking on Muslim Salikov in the welterweight division. Omar, give us your pick.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting fight. I think stylistically, it's a very close and competitive fight. I'm just going to really flip a coin here. I think I'm just going to go with Dalby here by decision.
Mark?
So, Muslim is definitely going to win round one of this fight. Dalby's not going to be wrestling. They're going to be exchanging strikes, and Muslim Salikov is the better striker with better technique and more varied attacks. But, man, Dalby just never stops coming. And he's a big dude. He's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage here. He's going to push for all 15 minutes and see if that pace can take over. And it's worked recently, so I don't know. I'm going to ride with it one more time. I'll say by round two, he kind of starts to overwhelm Salikov a bit and doesn't let Salikov be pretty in there. And I'll say he wins a split decision.
Who does? Dalby?
Yes. And Omar,
Okay.
you took Dalby? No, you took
I did. I did
Dalby.
by decision. Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be an interesting fight. This is a fight of the irresistible force versus the immovable object. Dalby's never been finished, and Salikov is a finisher, man. Of his 19 wins, 15 have come by way of a knockout or submission, mostly knockouts. In this case, I will go with Salikov, the guy I think who's going to have the bigger power in there. But I will split the difference and say that Dalby's never been finished, so I'll say Salikov by UD.
I forgot to say that Salikov is favored. He's almost 2-1 favorite in this fight.
I love his nickname, the King of Kung Fu. Okay. Let's keep marching here. Johnny Barcelos versus Miles Johns going down. It is the featured bout of the prelims going down to the bantamweight division. Mark, you go.
Barcelos is minus 230. Miles Johns plus 190. It is a 1-inch reach advantage for Barcelos, so pretty close size-wise. But I think this is a levels fight. Yes, we just saw Johnny get KO'd in his last fight by Umar Nurmagomedov. Yes, Miles Johns does carry power, but I just think Johnny Barcelos is at a completely different level than Miles Johns and should be able to win this fight everywhere it goes. So I will say he does that, and I'll say he eventually finds an opening on the mat and wins this by third-round submission.
Omar?
Yeah, I have a similar take. I do think that the fight will stay on the feet. I just don't see Miles Johns wanting to go down to the ground with Barcelos, and I don't think it'll end up going down there unless Barcelos wants it to. But I think he'll have so much success on the feet, I don't think it'll make it there. So I'm going to go with a round 1 KO for Johnny Barcelos.
I think we're unanimous on this one. I think Miles Johns is a really talented, well-rounded guy, but I think Barcelos is clearly the more talented of the two here. I think he's going to hop right back in the win column here. I think he's going to hand Miles Johns another TKO loss. I'm going to say he's going to get a TKO. I will say round 3 against Miles Johns. Okay, Manuel Torres versus Nicholas Mota. Let's see. Where is this one on the card? Wait, where's this fight? Is this on the card?
Second fight on the main card. Second fight on the
yes,
main
there
card,
it is.
right?
Lightweight division. Yep. Omar, take it.
Yeah, this is another interesting fight. Two relatively newer guys to the UFC. I think they've both done the Contender Series. They both had a couple fights in the UFC. Both of these guys are bangers, which is, I think, why this fight is such a good matchup, but it makes it really difficult to figure out exactly who's going to win this fight. This is another one that, for me, is really just going to be a toss-up in the air. I'm going to go with Manuel Torres here. I like his striking. I like his distance management. I think he gets it done here in the first round. I'm going to go with KO, first round.
Ooh, baby, Mark.
So he's the favorite. He's minus 190. Nicholas Moda is plus 150. Torres is an inch taller. He's got 2.5 inches of reach on his side. And he looked really good in his debut when he took out Frank Camacho. I was impressed. I thought his hands looked dangerous. Moda's dangerous too, but I also think his chin has kind of been there to be hit at times. So I'm going to say it's that simple. Manuel Torres puts his hands on Moda's chin, and I agree. I will say it is a round 1 knockout.
I agree. I think it's disconcerting that, given Moda's record, he has been finished 4 times. He only has 17 professional fights, and to be finished that many times at this point is a bit disconcerting. If he had like 35 pro fights and been finished a couple times, it's like, okay. That being said, it's combined with the fact that Torres has never been finished with punches, and also is a finisher himself and very well rounded. So give me Manuel Torres. I will say round 1 knockout. Okay, moving on up to the featherweight division here.
We all said round 1 knockout, huh? Wow.
Oh, did we? Oh, I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Featherweight division, Pat Sabatini versus Lucas Almeida. Mark?
Pat is minus 190. Almeida is a plus 155 dog. 3 inches of height and 1 of reach on the Almeida side. I really like Almeida. He's a crazy, vicious striker. I'm curious to see how he'll do here in terms of staying on his feet against Pat Sabatini. It's definitely a good test where we're going to learn about Almeida. But I'm going to go with Pat. I know we saw him get badly KO'd by Damon Jackson in his last fight. But if that had never happened, I feel like I wouldn't even be thinking twice about taking Pat here. So I'm going to trust him. I'll say the wrestling and the grappling carry the day, and that he'll just look a level above when it comes to the ground game. And I'll say Pat Sabatini UD, but he's definitely going to have to be careful because there's a lot of heat coming from Almeida.
Okay, Omar.
Yeah. I originally was thinking about going with Pat Sabatini as well. Just on paper, I think, he's a couple different areas of success that I think he can take. But Lucas Almeida is a dangerous guy, man. And I don't think if Pat Sabatini doesn't have a way to get this fight to the ground, I think Almeida finds a bit more success on the feet. And I think just for a little bit of sports, a little bit of fun here, since Mark went in that direction, I think I'm going to go with Almeida for this one here. And I will take Almeida by second round submission.
Yeah, I like both of these guys quite a bit, actually. That being said, I love the skill set of Lucas Almeida. I think he's a very, very exciting featherweight up and coming. I'm going to roll with him this time, although I hate to pick against Pat Sabatini because I really do like him a lot. I'm going to say Almeida gets a TKO round 3. Okay, oh no, not the co-main event. Excuse me. In the middleweight division, Armen Petrosyan, I will say, re-welcomes Christian Leroy Duncan to the UFC. I'll go first because I'm going to have not the easiest time picking this fight anyway because Christian Leroy Duncan is an undefeated prospect who came into the UFC 7-0. Unfortunately, his opponent, Dusko Todorovic, busted his knee during the fight. If I recall, it was just like in a random clinch exchange.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I remember the same.
I think I remember Christian Leroy Duncan looking pretty good throughout that fight, but definitely was a disappointing way that the fight ended towards the middle of the first round, really. So
right.
Hard to pick. That being said, I'll roll with the guy who's undefeated, and I'll say that he's going to get it done by UD. Mark?
Okay. He being Christian Leroy Duncan is the -150 favorite. Armin Petrosian is +125 dog, so pretty tight odds. It's an 8-inch reach advantage for CLD. That is so much. And Petrosian isn't a wrestler.
They're the same height.
He's a striker through and through.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct.
Jesus
Wow.
Christ.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was saying Petrosian's not a wrestler either. Like, he's a striker through and through. So he's going to have to deal with that all fight long. And he is really good, Petrosian. He's a really skilled striker, but Duncan is too. And I just think Duncan is too dangerous for that reach to not eventually matter and spell death. So I will say CLD round 2 TKO.
Wow.
Yeah. I pretty much have the same take. I was going to go with round 1 TKO, but the reality is I think Petrosian has enough wherewithal to be able to at least get through the one round, even if he does get hurt or anything like that. So normally in this case, I think I would go round 1, but I'm going to give Petrosian the benefit of the doubt and say he at least makes it to round 2. So I will also go round 2 TKO.
Okay, that brings us to the main event of the evening, UFC Fight Night.
Co-main.
Oh, fuck my ass.
You're a mess.
I'm a fucking mess. Why did I skip this one? And we were talking about this one earlier. Okay, lightweight division. Arman Tsarukyan versus Joaquin Silva. Omar, you go.
I got to be honest, man. I'm a really big fan of Arman Tsarukyan. That is a wild dude to watch in the cage, man. His strength, his ability to grapple, the power that he brings with his striking is, he's a really nice package altogether. I have a lot of confidence in him. Did that sound weird? It got weird, right? I felt it. A little bit. I felt it when I said it.
Really nice package.
Yeah, I felt it when I said it.
He's got a really big schlong.
Joaquin Silva's listen, you shouldn't be saying that, Mr. Fuck me in the ass over here. You're the one doubling down over here, not me.
You're right.
But Joaquin Silva was as good as he is, man. I have a little bit more confidence in Arman Tsarukyan. I think on paper he should be able to take this one, to be honest, no problem. So I'm going to go with Arman Tsarukyan here by unanimous decision. Though I wouldn't be surprised if he submits the shit out of this kid.
Submits the shit out of him.
That's happened in the that's happened in the octagon. So maybe I shouldn't say that because that's
what's
an
your
actual
pick?
thing that has happened. So I'm going to go with Arman Tsarukyan by unanimous decision.
Tsarukyan by UD. Okay.
Yes.
Mark.
Yeah, so Arman Tsarukyan is a -1,000 favorite. Joaquin Silva is +650 as the underdog.
He's not -1,000.
He's -1,000.
Wow. I mean, I believe it.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I've been saying. It's a stupid fight. So the stats quick: 1-inch height advantage for Silva, but 3.5-inch reach advantage for Arman. But yeah, it's a dumb fight. We all know it's a dumb fight. You can look at the odds and see that it's a dumb fight, even if you don't know who the fighters are. It's stupid. Joaquin Silva he's not a bad fighter, but he's lost 3 of his last 5. He is by no means on the level of an Arman Tsarukyan. And Arman's going to do whatever he wants in this fight. Maybe he wants to work on his striking. Maybe he wants to work on his wrestling. Maybe he really wants to try to end this thing by a submission. Whatever he wants to work on is what we're going to see because he's just better. So my guess is that we get maybe about 3 rounds of a clear beating, followed by a ground and pound mercy type finish in round 4. So that is what I'll go with. Arman Tsarukyan round 4 TKO.
I don't hate it.
Let's see. It's a 5-round fight.
It is.
Sorry,
not.
did I say?
You said 4.
I meant to say. Yeah, sorry. I meant to say 2 rounds of a beating, followed by a mercy type finish in round 3. I'm not sure why my brain said 3 and 4. I didn't realize I said that. Yes, sorry.
I mean, I was gonna take Tsarukyan anyway, but man, Those odds are crazy. Yeah, I think Joakim Noah is a very talented guy, but Sarukian is obviously the future of the lightweight division. You know what I really like about Arman Sarukian? I like his 1960s Beatles haircut. It's just like right out of like Paul McCartney, 1966, plopped right on this Russian guy's head. Love it. I like Sarukian in this fight, and I'm going to say he's going to get an exciting finish over a dangerous Brazilian lightweight in his own right. Give me Sarukian third round TKO. Okay, middleweight division, which is the main event between Marvin Vettori and Jared Cannonier. Here we go. UFC Fight Night going down at the Apex once again in Las Vegas, Nevada. We will introduce first, out of the blue corner probably, I think, is Jared Cannonier, the Killer Gorilla, the 39-year-old out of Anchorage, Alaska, 16-6 as a pro. Eight of his wins have come by way of finish, 10 of them knockouts, coming off of a split decision victory over Sean Strickland back in December. He will be standing across from Marvin, the Italian Dream Vettori, the 29-year-old out of Italy. He is 19-6 with one draw, 9 victories by way of submission. Add 2 more knockouts to that. He also is coming off of 1 win over Roman Dolidze back in March of this year. Omar, why don't you kick us off?
My analysis, honestly, is pretty short and sweet. Jared Cannonier, I think, is a decent fighter, but he shits the bed quite a bit. And I think he does it in fights that really matter. He's got a lot of power, but the reality is there's a lot of moments where he doesn't really open up his hands. Marvin Vettori has not really lost against anybody who doesn't matter, right? Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker. I think somewhere, even going further down than that, I don't even think really matters at this point in his career. But fighting somebody against Jared Cannonier, I think he's just a better fighter. I think his striking will be more on point. I don't think his power, the power that he brings, will be a problem. I don't think it'll be as much as Jared Cannonier, but it doesn't mean that the power that he brings isn't going to hurt Jared Cannonier, because it very well will. I think Vettori's movement should be enough to stay away from a lot of the big shots. I'm sure he'll get tagged every now and again, but I don't think anything will land particularly flush. And I think the overall worker of this fight will be Marvin Vettori from bell to bell. So I'm going to go with Marvin Vettori here with a nice, dominant, unanimous decision win over Jared Cannonier, proving that he should be in the top 4 or 5 discussion almost all the time.
Mark.
Okay, we have what is basically a pick'em here. Marvin Vettori is minus 115. Jared Cannonier is minus 105. So pretty much a pick'em. It's a 1-inch height advantage for Vettori. It is a 3.5-inch reach advantage for Cannonier, which is a solid reach advantage here. This is a great matchup. It's one that absolutely feels like we should have seen by now. I'm excited to find out who's the better man between these two. It's kind of always, you talk about them at the same level here. Now we finally get that answer. And for me, I'm going to go with Marvin Vettori as well. I think that the activity of Marvin Vettori is the X factor for me here in terms of winning these rounds. He's way more willing to come forward, to throw shots, to eat something if he has to make sure that he is landing and earning points. I think he'll be moving Cannonier back. I do think Cannonier is the smarter fighter. I think he's the one who can maybe make the reads and make the adjustments on the fly more so than Vettori, who I always feel like is a little bit one note in that regard when it comes to making adjustments in the fight. But Vettori has a fantastic chin. I trust it to hold up. He can even look to wrestle here, I think, in a worst-case scenario. And I've just never been that big of a believer in Jared Cannonier as a top guy. And Sean Strickland almost exposed it. I thought he won that fight. And I think Vettori is the guy who does expose it. So I am going to say it is a clear decision as well. I'm going to say Marvin Vettori 49-46 behind pressure and activity.
Yep.
Personally, I'm not super high on either one of these two guys for some strange reason. There's aspects of both of their games that I like.
I wouldn't say I'm super high on Vettori either. I get that.
I'm gonna pick against my better judgment here. I like the points you guys made about Vettori. In some ways, I do think that Vettori is not the best matchup for Cannonier because Vettori has such a good motor, especially as a middleweight. He has one of the best motors at middleweight, I'd say. That being said,
for sure.
I'm going to go with feeling for this one. And in spite of the fact that Marvin Vettori has never been knocked out or finished at all, for that matter, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. I'm going to say Jared Cannonier, with his big power, hands Marvin Vettori his first knockout or TKO loss. And I'm going to say it happens in the second round.
Wow. That would be something.
Yeah, that'd be wild. That would be wild. On the marquee for sure with that shit, for sure.
Yeah, man. Yep. Jesus. I mean, Vittori's a fucking tank, dude.
I mean, this is...
He is.
At this point, I was thinking, because Omar was saying, like, top 5, whatever. At this point, the winner of this fight pretty much gets to call themselves the third best middle behind Izzy and Whitaker.
Sure. Especially
with Pereira gone from the division.
Right, if he's going up to light heavy, yep.
Yes, I mean, they're sitting... Whoever wins this fight is sitting pretty for sure.
Okay. Trivia, and then go to bed. Here we go. Who has the most total career knockdowns in the UFC? Are you ready? For 4 choices.
Yes.
I will read you the top 4. Here we go. Is it A, Jeremy Stevens, B, Anderson Silva, C, Edson Barboza, or D, Donald Cerrone?
Wow, not a single heavyweight in the top 4.
And not one of those names didn't even pop up for me when I was thinking about it. Honestly, not a lot of names popped up.
Anderson popped up for me right away.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I think that's the answer now that I'm hearing all this. Tell me them one more time. Sorry, looks like I'm cheating. I'm writing our fucking picks down. Let me stop typing.
Jeremy Stevens, Anderson Silva, Edson Barboza, or Donald Cerrone?
Most career knockdowns.
I'll give you a couple other names just so you know that are right outside of this list of these top 4. Right outside. Chuck Liddell's right outside. Shogun Rua is right outside, which is funny because he had so much of his career.
This doesn't include Pride?
I don't think so.
Wow.
Unless they're including Pride.
On the broadcast, who was it? Huh? What'd you say?
No, go ahead. I'm saying unless they're counting the Pride because UFC kind of absorbed Pride, no?
Well, that's what I was wondering because I saw on the broadcast, I forget who it was now. Man, I wish I could remember this. Oh, it was Charles Oliveira. After the fight, they put up a thing that said most finishes in WEC/Pride/Strikeforce/UFC history. And I've never seen them do that before. And Charles Oliveira was number 2 behind Crow Cop. 1 fight back of Crow Cop. But I've just never seen them do that before. Pull in, they do the WEC UFC, but to pull in the Strikeforce and the Pride, I was like, wow, are we doing that now? So that's why I asked, because I was wondering if they had Shogun's Pride knockdowns on this list.
The only heavyweight in the top 9 here that I'm looking at is JDS.
Wow.
was C? You had Jeremy Stevens. You had Anderson Silva.
Barboza. Or D. Donald Cerrone. So Stevens, Silva, Barboza, Cerrone.
This shit is crazy. I really
I have
don't
no
even
idea.
know.
I'm just gonna stick with the first person that popped into my head when you asked this, which was Anderson Silva. So
Yeah, I'll go with Donald Cerrone.
Edson Barboza has 15
Fuck.
career knockdowns.
Oh wait.
Anderson Silva and Jeremy Stevens are tied with 18. And Donald Cerrone has 20 career knockdowns in the UFC.
Hey, let's go, baby. Cowboy hasn't let me down yet. Let's go.
wow.
Let's go.
Wait, what were the numbers? Edson 15.
Yep.
Then what?
Stevens and Silva tied with 18 each total career knockdowns. And Donald Cerrone has 20 total career knockdowns.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. That has to include WEC.
Has to,
Who
right?
Edson. I was going to
Yeah,
say
I
who's
would
the
think
closest
so.
active fighter, but obviously
Edson
that
is
is
actually the
Edson.
only active fighter in this top 9 that I'm looking at.
Oh wow.
So Chuck Liddell, Shogun Hua,
It's a good one.
Lyoto Machida, Junior Dos Santos, and Thiago Santos all have 14 career knockdowns.
Very
I think
interesting.
I'll say this now because I'm pretty sure I might have done this on a previous trivia question, so I'll just say it anyway. Anderson Silva does have the most knockdowns in title fights in UFC history with 10.
Yes.
You did do
Yeah, we
that
did
question,
that
yeah.
one. Yeah. Nice.
Well, boys, we've done it again. Folks, enjoy all of the MMA action this weekend. To my new friend, John Jones, sorry I gave you a thumbs up to your face.
I'm curious before we go. Out of Vettori Cannonier, Nemkov Romero, and Pettis Pitbull, which fight are you guys most excited about?
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably. I mean, I think Pitbull might be the most like marquee name of the whole weekend. The fact that he's fighting a Pettis is also
That's
super high profile.
the one
Yeah.
I'm the most pumped for. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to be honest, man. The Sergio Pettis Pitbull thing is really so interesting to me that it's hard not to be that. It's hard not to want to watch that one like right now.
The fact that
Yeah. The last all 3 of the last fights on this Bellator card, I'm going to be very into.
the fact that Pitbull was never in the UFC is one of the saddest things in the MMA world.
I know. It fucking sucks. It really does. And sometimes I forget about him. Like, I know we got to end this show, but when we finished the bantamweight ranks that we did last week, in my head I was like, oh, featherweight's next. And I was like, who like pops in my head as like who my top 5 would be. And I had it, and I never even considered him. And then like a few hours later it hit me, and I was like, oh my God, like where I got to think about where Pitbull would fall in all this. Like you just forget how great he is at times.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm really just trying to figure out if we should end the show with Mike's picture of him and John Jones and then just me putting the Mentos song in the background. Doesn't matter what comes, fresh goes better in mine.
Okay. Okay.
Listen,
Next
we can
time.
give you shit all we want. The reality was you announced John Jones, so you win already. I hope you know this.
Want to watch Mike intro John Jones? If you have UFC Fight Pass, go on there, search APFC 5, go just before the main event, I believe it was, and fucking watch that shit because it's awesome.
You could do yourself a favor and just watch Mike introduce everybody anyway. It's pretty goddamn good. And those name pronunciations are on point.
Thanks,
Jeff's
man.
kiss.
Hey, also catch that main event. Ended with the flying knee knockout. Pretty sick. Cody Lynn.
Dude, the fights,
places.
at least the finishes I was watching on social media were out of control. There was
Great
some
stuff.
violent shit going on in that card. It looked great.
Yeah, great stuff. All right, let's get out of here. Enjoy all the fights this weekend, guys, and we will reconvene next week. Let's go.
All right, baby.
Peace. Delayed.